Test.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for spotting that. Makes it look a bit better. Okay. Yeah.
Oh, right. Blimey.
All right.
All right.
Thanks,
Okay.
Alex. Yeah. We can start now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Thank you very much.
People think I'm Herman Kwan.
Thank you. Thank you. Roll the filter. So now.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello. We're gonna start now. It's 7:30, so we'll get underway now. So good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee at Glenmore House. Particularly warm welcome to those members of the public with us tonight. I'm Councillor Tom Reeve and I'm chairing this meeting tonight. In the event of an emergency and the sounding of an alarm, the emergency evacuation procedure is to leave the hall by the fire exit, the one right behind you, and congregate in the parking lot. Anyone requiring assistance should remain in their seats and you'll be assisted from the building. Anybody who wishes to follow the agenda from a tablet or smartphone can do so by going to the Council's website and following the links to your council and council meeting calendar. This meeting is being filmed for live broadcast on the council's YouTube channel, and an archived version will be available to view on the channel after the meeting finishes. The broadcast will be suspended during any adjournments in proceedings, and if the committee resolves to consider information as exempt business. Members are reminded the microphones must be switched on and spoken into clearly for the broadcast and for the benefit of people in the room. Please, can everyone present in the meeting also ensure that their mobile phones are switched off and in silent mode for the duration of this meeting? Thank you. So I'll start by inviting members to introduce themselves. And I'll start with our Tolworth councillors down here, if I may. Just going to take an order. Thank you.
Good evening. This title and councillor for Tolworth Ward.
Andrew from the Tolworth Ward.
Mariana, also from Tolworth.
Councillor Peter Hurling from Alexandra Ward.
Ian Manders from Alexandra Ward.
Anita Sharper from Berrylands Ward.
I'm Jackie Davis, also from Berrylands Ward.
I'm Councillor Jürgen Jürgenathan from St Mark's and Seething Wells Ward, please.
Right. Thank you very much, councillors. I'm required to advise members that in accordance with paragraph 6.3 of the procedures rule for planning committees, the planning application relating to Hollingsworth Court, Lovelace Gardens, was withdrawn from the agenda as no registered objector has registered a speaking slot by the deadline. The item has accordingly been reverted to the Assistant Director of Strategic Planning and Infrastructure to determine under delegated powers and will not be considered by the committee. The responding applicant also lost his right to address the committee. So the first item on our agenda is always public questions. We have a period of no more than 30 minutes for questions on matters relevant to the committee. And we like to encourage questions to be submitted in advance so that officers have an opportunity to answer them, although that's not absolutely necessary. So we have, I think, a total of 15 residents have indicated that they wish to ask a question tonight. So simple maths, I'll kind of try and get through about one every 2 minutes. I'll invite each one each to ask one question, and you'll be given the opportunity to ask a supplementary question if appropriate, but I would ask, for the sake of allowing everybody to ask their questions, if you could keep those brief. Any subsequent questions you might have will only be considered after all other residents have had the opportunity to ask their first question, like I said, if time allows. So to allow all residents the opportunity to ask a question, as I said, let's try to keep it to 2 minutes and be as concise as possible. And if you wish to preface the question with a statement, again, please be brief and to the point. Herman, our Democratic Services Officer, will inform you when you have 30 seconds left and when time is up. So if I could ask Liz Mitchell to come forward, please. Yes, Mr. Oakes, that'd be fine. Thank you.
Right. Good to go? Yep. Good evening, councillors. In the interest of time, we've kept our questions to just a yes or no answer so that our other neighbours have an opportunity to ask questions. So if we can stick to one-word answers, that'd be great. After over 2 years of blundering mistakes, poor consultation, making up decisions on the fly, not following due process, not looking at the data to make informed decisions, next month this committee is going to be presented with a report outlining RBK's strategy to address through traffic. And that strategy is 4 zebra crossings, some double yellow lines, a few trees, maybe a few benches or 2. There is zero evidence provided by RBK or anywhere else that shows zebra crossings will reduce rat running, the cause of our traffic issues. Nor is there evidence that zebra crossings will make the streets safer. Will RBK still implement zebra crossings if more than 80% of responses are against them because they don't address the root cause of the issue, nor do they make the streets safer?
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. If I want to make more than a one-word answer, I will. Thank you. I'll just say that community support is an important factor, but would never be the sole consideration. And we're committed to looking at healthy street options across the borough. We've presented options to introduce safer crossing points and other measures to improve the environment generally to Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee on the 20th of September. Following the consultation we've now carried out, we're going to present officer recommendations to the Neighbourhood Committee at a special meeting on the 13th of March. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Who's next?
You're welcome.
Mr. Oakes, please.
Okay, so I'm going to refer back to the previous committee. I've had some further correspondence with you, Councillor Reeve, since then. So, as you know, we've been coming to this meeting for 2 years now to tell you about the unsafe conditions in Tolworth Road, and in particular on Thornhill and Tolworth roads. As Liz mentioned, all we've got at the moment is proposals for some zebra crossings, some trees, some benches to help us with the rat running issue. All of those measures you've said don't help reduce the rat running problem. At the last meeting, I told you that we had asked TfL whether they have any jurisdiction to deny you from making improvements to our roads to reduce rat running, and was told that basically, yes, they do. We've had some further correspondence with you, Councillor Reeve, since that meeting, and led to believe that TfL can refuse anything that changes the junction at Fuller's Way North, but in the actual roads around there, they don't. While they're a stakeholder, they can object to the TMO. They can't actually stop you from, well, they're a stakeholder in the process, but they're not stopping you from putting forward proposals. So I want to know whether this committee is choosing not to implement measures in the Tolworth ward, and in particular on Thornhill and Tolworth roads, to reduce rat running, whether it's a choice of yours not to do that?
If Councillor Manders would take that, please.
Yes, okay. I mean, just on the kind of earlier point about zebra crossings not improving road safety, I have to say, Chair, we have 90 years worth of data as zebra pedestrian crossings have been in since the 1930s, and we have learnt a lot from that experience at that particular time, and it's proven that they do improve road safety. Coming on to the other point about TfL, well, I have to say they would, wouldn't they, say somehow they got no influence, but they do have influence, particularly when it comes to a junction coming off the A3. And they also have funding influence as well. So in the end, you know, we have to do what TfL will agree. I certainly know that myself and the highways, and the portfolio holder covering sustainable transport in the borough, but myself and highways officers have worked very hard to try and get some kind of solution for this area. But in the end, everything is subject to democratic control. So, you know, we will carry on looking for solutions. As you know, I'm not making any wild promises. I don't want to make promises that I can't deliver. So, you know, we have really tried our best on this. I said, quite frankly, at previous meetings, the last meeting and meetings before that, the road safety issues that we're putting in are not addressing the rat running issue. They are there to improve the road safety of pedestrians and cyclists and so on using those roads. I'm asking people in the area to support those road safety matters, those road safety proposals, and I do hope in the end that we can persuade residents that there is a need for those to go in. I don't see any advantage at all to the area not to have those road safety measures. They are proven road safety measures based on very long experience. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you.
And supplement, please.
Sorry, yes, go ahead. If you could keep it.
So I wasn't talking about the Fuller's Way junction, because I accept that TfL had the ability to veto anything that you do there. I was talking about measures within the Tolworth ward itself.
Right.
You've said about the safety measures, but do you agree that if you reduce the rat running traffic, those safety measures wouldn't be as necessary? So you're putting a sticking plaster and implementing some zebra crossings, but not solving the root cause of the problem. Do you accept that?
Yes. Well, I have said, and you know this because you've asked questions at several of these meetings, that the road safety measures that we're proposing, such as the zebra crossings, do not tackle the issue of rat running in those particular roads. In the end, those issues have to be sorted out with Transport for London, because the primary problem is that Fuller's Way North is the first junction off the A3 in the borough when you're going north. And, we all know what the situation is that traffic comes off there because they can't come off at the Hook roundabout, and they then make their way back to the Hook roundabout to either go north or south from that point. And until we can get some kind of solution to that fundamental issue with Transport for London, then we are stuck, unfortunately, with that problem. And that's what we'll continue to seek to do with TfL.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Manders. If I could move on to Catherine Yates, please.
Yep. Hi, I'm Catherine Yates, Tolworth Road resident. So we are seeing an increase, unfortunately, in road rage and aggressive behaviour on both our roads, in particular, Thornhill and Tolworth Road, and an increased anticipation of confrontation. How will the consultation, I think you've just answered this actually, how will the consultation and proposed measures address the antisocial behaviour that we endure on a daily basis of rat runners and through traffic?
Okay, thank you for your question, Ms. Yates. I'm assuming you're referring to the Tolworth Healthy Streets scheme which is coming to committee on the 13th of March. And I was just going to ask our Highways Officer, Ian Baker, if he would respond to your question, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the consultation was focused on introducing safer crossing points and other measures to improve the environment generally. We have limited funding to continue Healthy Streets work in Tolworth during 2024-25. We will continue engaging with the community and to assess and prioritise options carefully. We encourage residents to report any concerns about antisocial behaviour to the police. And in regard to road rage and aggressive behaviour on our roads, we are in touch with the charity Living Streets, and they and we will soon be highlighting through various channels the government's Think campaign, which helps people travel like you know them.
Thank you very much, Ian. And do you have a supplementary question to that?
No.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I understand that Simon Laycock is not here, so I'll move on to Graham Hare, please.
I've got 2 minutes, Mr. Kwan. Okay. Right, hello everyone. I expected to be here tonight to present our petition to you for comment and debate. When this topic was first moved from November to February, we had to notify residents accordingly. So to be sure of progress, I checked with Mr. Reeve on the 25th of Jan and the 1st of Feb, and I was assured that everything was on track for tonight. So I was very surprised to be told just 1 week beforehand that it suddenly had been decided that they should instead go to the Police Committee. I emailed Mr. Reeve with several questions, but heard nothing back. I'm angry about this. 2,000 people across Berrylands are angry about this. Now, I understand that this decision was taken bilaterally by Mr. Reeve and Mr. Manders without any agreement prior from this committee. The email notifying me stated it's become apparent that the level of interest is so great and that there were implications for the rest of the borough. Really? The scale of interest and objections have been apparent from when the barrier was first installed, and we've known since November that our petition represents over 2,000 residents. Nothing has become suddenly apparent in the last 2 weeks. What wider implications? This committee's remit includes to approve traffic management schemes on all roads other than A roads. This committee implemented the barrier, the committee decided to make it permanent, and this committee removed the barrier in Tolworth. This was all without any referral to the Place Committee, local discussions and decisions taken right here. This looks like a transparent attempt to take the decision away from this committee.
30 seconds.
Perhaps for fear that the councillors might here be listening to the concerns of 2,000 residents and to find a forum that might actually vote the way Mr. Reeve and Mr. Randers want. This issue should be brought back to this committee. The way that it's been managed is seriously damaging not just for this committee but also for the council's reputation. We seriously doubt this conforms to the council's code of conduct and we expect to raise a formal complaint. For now, for the benefit of all the people in this room and everyone watching online, perhaps they would like to explain this and justify this to very many interested parties. Thank you.
Right. So thank you very much for your question, Mr. Hare. I did offer to meet with you, which you declined.
Yeah, I politely said that I'd like answers to my questions.
Sorry, I'm not getting into debate with you here. I'm making a comment about the comment.
Answers first, Tom, before we meet.
The comment that you made. So I'm just saying. So the petition requesting removal of the permanent modal filter in King Charles Road and a petition supporting its retention were reported to Neighbourhood Committee in November 23. And under provisions in the council constitution, the committee heard from both sets of petitioners. They respectively introduced their petitions and elaborated their views on why the modal filter should be removed or remain in operation. And the committee noted that the subject matter of the petitions should normally be considered at the next meeting of the relevant body, but where this is not practicable, consideration will be taking place at a subsequent meeting. And in this case, the Highways Department would need more time to conduct further surveys to address both petitions. So it was intended that there would be a report back to this committee meeting, which would help inform more meaningful debate on the subject matter and would include information such as the healthy streets indicators, traffic data, collision data, and road safety issues. The petition organizers would have had a further opportunity to address the meeting about the matter under the provisions in the Constitution for public speaking. And unfortunately, due to staff vacancies within the Highways Department, the report has been delayed until later this year. So when the report is eventually tabled, the petitioners and other members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and to comment.
I checked with you 25th of January, and I checked with you again over email on the 1st of February. You assured me that everything was on track, the Highways report, for this meeting. That's what you said.
And that was the information that I was given at the time, but situations change. So thank you very much, Mr. Hare. Move on to Marina Golding, please.
Thank you. 2,036 residents voted resoundingly for the removal of the barrier on King Charles Road. 922 online and 1,114 physically signed the respective petitions. The analysis makes interesting reading. Nearly 1,000 signatures in Alexandra wards alone, and combined figure for Alexandra and Berrylands wards was 1,771. To keep the barrier, incidentally, 453. Most residents believe that by participating in a legal and democratic petitioning process, you, their councillors, would take heed and act for them. Yet you continue to ignore their wishes. What more proof do you need from your residents that they want this barrier removed? They are very, very angry.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Ms. Golding, for coming and speaking to us tonight. All I can add to my previous reply is that highway officers will draft a report which will include an analysis of all of the factors, and this will be presented for consideration to the council.
I'd just like to add and just emphasise that the constituents, Alexandra and Berrylands, are very, very angry, and this issue is not going to go away.
Well, thank you, Ms. Golden. Right, could we hear from Leo Deletto?
Good evening, councillors. Can you hear me? Yeah. Right, you all know me. On the same subject, on the barrier, to say I'm disgusted at the way it's being treated is an understatement. But I would like to point out to you, I had the minutes of the infamous 22nd of July 22, was it, or 21, where this was shoved through. And I understand, in reading those minutes, that certain rules and regulations were relaxed because of COVID. And I also understand that those regulations still apply, or lack of regulations still apply. My question is, why, oh why, in these circumstances, could not the barrier be removed forthwith, pending whatever decision by whatever committee is reached? That is my question.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Well, the barrier was made permanent in 2021, and since then we've now got 3 years of data, and we've also got the data from before the barriers were implemented as well. So that's being processed by officers and will be included in the report coming back, which will cover this matter. As the Chair said, we do have an issue with highways engineers at the moment. It's not only a problem which we have, it's also a problem other London boroughs have. It is very difficult to get highways engineers in London. There is a shortage. We are recruiting all the time to try and get those qualified highways engineers who can come and analyse the data and give us a report about what exactly has happened in terms of traffic after the King Charles Road modal filter was put in. So when I became the portfolio holder for climate action and sustainable transport, I said to officers that the reports that we do have to be data-based. They have to be based on reality, and they have to be based on good, logical and scientific reasons with proven information about why things are done. So I am upholding officers to that, and then the eventual report that you will get will be based on the facts. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Manders. So did you have a supplementary question? Bear in mind we're trying to get through quite a few questions here tonight.
You really haven't answered the question. Why cannot that be removed now? Look, it's our roads. It's nothing to do with TfL.
Right.
You've got to be strong and stand up to them.
Okay.
Don't blame TfL for everything. You blame it for the Yule Road mess that's up there. You blame it for everything.
Can I ask you a question?
You've got to stand up to them.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Deletto. So I think the answer is very clear that we won't be able to remove the modal filter until such time as we're able to analyse all the evidence and understand the consequences of doing this. So
you do that if you take the barrier away now.
Thank you.
I'm not see for yourselves after a couple of months there'll be a different situation.
Thank you, Mr. Deletto. It's really good that you came. Thank you, but I'm not getting in a debate.
No, I'm sorry. I don't think you really listen to the people.
Well, I would be happy to meet you.
You know, I've been coming here since.
Excuse me.
Since that 4 years now.
I would like to call our next speaker so that we have time to get through all of the questions. There's still quite a few people who would like to ask questions after you, sir. Yeah. So I would be happy to meet you outside this meeting. So let's
I'd love to.
Well, let's do that then. Okay, but can you let the next? Can you kindly
see for yourself?
Can you kindly let the next speaker come to the table?
Certainly.
Thank you. May I ask Sandra Hillman to please come up? Oh, sorry. I apologise. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and come forward, and then I accidentally got it in the wrong order, but that's fine. We'll carry on in this order. And thank you, Ms. Hillman.
Good evening, councillors. I've got a very quick question. Can we have a hands up amongst the SNC here? How many members of this committee agree to take the decision of the removal of the King Charles Road barrier out of their hands and put it in to the Place Committee? So all I'm asking is...
I'm sorry, all questions need to go through the chair, and I can't allow that question because I can't allow that because of the rules.
Okay, if I can't have a hand, can I have a number? What's... it's anonymous then, but I'd like to have numbers.
You're quite welcome to speak to each of the councillors in turn.
Okay. We're about to enter what's called a pre-election period. Okay, so this is because of the London mayoral elections, and it means that we can't really hold committee meetings in that time. Essentially, there's a ban on officers making any work or contributions, anything that can be considered to be politically relevant and that might affect the election in some way. So this year, is that everyone thought we knew what the pre-election period was, but in fact when the announcement was made, it was different from what virtually every other London borough expected it to be. So that means that we've had to alter committee meetings. So there's been there were two committees that I'm on that were affected by that, the Communities and Resources Committee and also the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee as well. And so the Surbiton Neighbourhood Committee was brought forward very, very hurriedly. And that meant basically then there was a disruption to the timetable of what could go to the committee. So there was an internal discussion at the time about whether we could use another committee, which is the Place Committee, to actually receive the report, which would cover the issues about the King Charles Road modal filter. But anyway, in the end, our shortage of highways engineers meant the report could not be finished even in time for a Place Committee immediately after the pre-election period. So that's the unfortunate situation we are in. It's essentially really, first of all, a question of timetable, and now it's a question of staff shortages. So that's my apologies anyway that we were that happened to us, but it's also happened to all the other councillors in London as well. We've all had to move meetings, and we've all had to cope with this basically this shortage of highways engineers. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Manders. So I would, if I could, did you have a supplementary question? Because I'd like to move, okay. Could I ask Majid Mafi to come forward?
Good evening, councillors. Barrowland residents have been waiting patiently for the promised and long-awaited highway officer's report about the King Charles Road closure and its impact and benefits for the majority of the residents. The report was due on April 2023, then delayed to June 2023, then delayed again to November 2023, and then delayed again to February 2024. But the report has not yet been produced. My question is, what has caused the long delay? I know you mentioned that shortage of staff and data analysis, but why didn't they take council that long when they implement the barrier? They've done it very quickly, but it has taken 4 years now to removing it. But going further, when can we expect to see this report? And will this extensive and evidence-based report demonstrate that the closure of the King Charles Road has met the council's healthy street objectives and has benefited the majority of the residents, not just the minority handful?
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Maffey. Again, I would refer to Councillor Manders, if I can. He's our portfolio holder for transport, as he mentioned. Okay.
Well, clearly I don't want to go over what I've already answered to the previous questions. The data is emerging anyway from officers at the moment that will ultimately go into the final report. So I haven't seen the final data yet, but at the moment anyway, it's, from what I have seen, it's very hard for me to spot actually that the King Charles Road barrier effectively, has been the issue that some people have claimed for it. So, like I say, it's only on the data which I've seen so far. So we'll see what emerges when that part of the report is finished. But as I said earlier, I've said to highways officers that decisions and what we're going to do, it will be based on the data. So you will see the data that we have, and that's from machine traffic counts, which are taken place before and after the barrier was put in. And I think that will tell us all exactly what has actually happened as a result of the King Charles barrier.
Thank you.
Okay,
thank you, Councillor. Do you have a supplementary question?
Sorry, Chair. My question was an answer. When can we expect to see this report? And will this report include that the King Charles Road closure has met the council healthy streets and benefited the majority of the residents?
Right, and I believe the answer
No,
is...
the answer was they have seen the data and
Yeah,
the
thank you.
traffic hasn't changed.
Sorry, can I... Yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Do you want to come back on that?
Okay, well, like I say, this is before the final details of the data emerge, but traffic levels have dropped over the whole area. So, there we are. You see, in the end, this is based on the data that I have seen. Now, I don't want to get into a discussion tonight, okay, about it because we need to see the final report. But the actual fact is that overall, from the information I've seen, is traffic levels have gone down.
Yeah.
Now there may be, sorry, as they have elsewhere, I have to say. So we need to work out whether that's something which is...
Sir, excuse me.
Okay.
Could I ask members of the...
Okay.
Sorry, can you pause for a second, please?
Yeah.
Could I ask members of the audience not to shout out questions or comments so that we can have a chance to hear the people in the room that are speaking?
Thank you. So this is something which has generally happened over a wider area than just what we're talking about. So we need to find out, as it were, what the intervention of the King Charles Road modal filter, what effect it has had on that. And I will be discussing with you and other residents about particular issues about particular roads. So I will come back and contact you about that.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Can I, sorry, just a quick
No,
supplementary?
I'm sorry. We're really up against time. In fact, we've used up our 30 minutes, but I have 6 more people. So thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I just wanted to know, Councillor Manders saying that 2,300 people are wrong.
Sorry, excuse me.
Because that's what you're saying, that the data... Anyway, thank you very much.
Can we have this...
Chair, just a matter of clarification, I haven't said that. Okay, so what I said was actually what the data is in terms of the general area. The traffic levels have gone down. So I will, like I say, we will be, when we have more information, we will look and see what the intervention of the King Charles Road modal filter has had on that particular situation. And I do acknowledge there are particular hotspots which have, that are there and have been for a long time, and that's where we need a particular discussion, and I'll come back to you on that about Raven Avenue.
Thank you.
Okay, right. Yes, hello. Excuse me. Sorry. Can we come back to order, please? We have come to the end of the sorry, can I have a, thank you. So we've come to the end of the 30-minute period. However, we've still got 6 people who hadn't had a chance to ask questions. So what I'd like to do is extend our time limit by another 15 minutes, if that's okay with the rest of the committee. So I'm getting, looks like we have the agreement of the committee. So if we could I ask Andy Elmer to come forward? I won't, but I will change things. No supplementary questions, please. Let's just give everybody a chance to ask their questions in the time that's available to us. We have a lot of business left to conduct tonight. So, Mr. Elmer, thank you very much for coming.
Is this on? Good, hope so. Thanks. I'm still a little unclear, actually, what you're saying about the report about the barrier, whether it is coming back here or whether it's going to place. Now, I'm assuming that the last we heard it was going to place. So on that basis, this is my question. You've got a report on the committee today about Ewell Road cycle lanes. It's an opportunity to spend another £1.75 million of ours and TfL's money, which is ours as well. And it was put in initially in the face of opposition. It's been made permanent, the bits that have been in face of opposition, and a lot of that element of the money is actually being used to correct mistakes which were made when it was first put in. Now, as you know, you haven't got the report before you about King Charles Road, which is also put in the face of opposition, and there is now a body of evidence which you know about who want the barrier removed, and that we've got plenty of evidence which hopefully your engineers, when they're finally employed, will agree with, which will say that it's right, it's caused problems. But my issue is you've got this massive report on cycle lanes here, which is you consider yourself competent to deal with, and yet you've said that the barrier in King Charles Road is less, well, you think it's now of strategic importance, it needs to go to a higher committee. I'm not sure how that fits in with Nolan principles, particularly of integrity, openness and honesty.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Elmer. What we have tonight with the cycle report, which we'll be hearing from Ian Baker later, is for comment. Our comments will then be taken to place for a decision. So it's not a case, we're not making those decisions here tonight. We're offering comments and feedback because it's part of a larger program. So I believe that
You still feel yourself competent to do that?
I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that question, but thank you very much. Could I ask Elizabeth McGill to come forward, please?
Hello, thank you. Nice to see you all again. I've been really kind of heartened to hear tonight about the extent to which the decision is going to be made based on evidence, because I think it is really important that these are evidence-based decisions and not just made based on really loud and kind of subjective voices in the room. We've heard tonight about some of the data that's going to be included in the highways report, particularly about traffic monitoring strips, but I wanted to ask what other types of evidence and data are being included. For example, are traffic injuries and crash data going to be included, and also are the equity impacts of the barrier going to be included, given that King Charles Road and the area surrounding it are an area of much lower socioeconomic status than the rest of Barrylands? Thank you. And for the heckles in the background, there's actually very clear evidence from the council that they are much more deprived in that area.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you.
Around the King Charles barrier.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your question, Ms. McGill. And I'm sure...
Yes.
You're able to come in on that question for me,
yes, there was quite a list of things that you asked whether we're considering, and yes, we are considering those things, and obviously particularly road collision data as well, and general road safeties, and we're also looking to the future, because as we know, there's going to be a new school on the corner of Hollyfield Road and King Charles Road, and we need to look very carefully at the traffic plan which was submitted by the school previously to see really whether it's adequate for purposes. As we know, there's also a park and a children's playground and the Alexandra Park, and those are all the things that we need to consider in the road safety issues, as well as things like the traffic counts and so on before and after the King Charles modal filter was put in. So yes, that's what the report will consider, and if you have any more questions, supplementary questions. No, actually, we're not having supplementary questions.
No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
But you can always ask me afterwards.
I will. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Could I ask Andrew McGill, please?
Good evening, councillors. We've been told that the petitions about the King Charles Road LTN need to be considered at a borough-wide level because decisions on it may have implications across the borough. Is the Police Committee looking at the borough's other LTNs or just the KCR one, King Charles Road one?
As I said earlier, we were looking at place because primarily because of the pre-election period. And at the moment anyway, the key thing is for us to get the report out. And as the Chair said, certainly the report will be considered by this committee. And as soon as we know that it's coming out, then obviously we will notify people, including the people who have presented the petitions, both for removal of the King Charles Road modal filter and the ones who want to retain the King Charles Road modal filter.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Could I ask Sylvia Montgomery to come forward, please? Is Sylvia Montgomery? Oh, thank you very much for coming today.
Hello. My question is regarding the traffic data, which you mentioned earlier. We're residents of Cortlands Road, and for people who don't know Cortlands Road, it's become the biggest, the fastest, the narrowest, and the shortest road in Berrylands. And we are taking all the traffic down through to the A3 since the King Charles Road barrier was erected. My question about your data is, you've recently had traffic counts in the area, Avenue South, Alexandra Road, Manor Drive, everywhere but Cortlands Road. Now, my question is, how can your data be used when we are the worst, experiencing the worst conditions since this barrier? You can't, because it's wrong. The data will be completely wrong, and you cannot use it in connection with this question.
Okay, thank you for your question, Ms. Montgomery.
Well, I'll discuss, Chair, with officers to see if there's any way that we can work out from traffic data in neighbouring roads.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I did discuss this with Eunice and with Councillor Davis and Anita, that the same question, it's been brought up twice, and each time they've said that this will be done, that counters will be put in Cortlands Road. And indeed, Councillor Davis was with me one day, and she experienced a horrific car speed going past us. So it needs to be looked at, and there's never ever been any counters in Cortlands Road, so you cannot produce data in support of this.
Well, Chair, it's the first time the question has come to me, so I will discuss with Highways engineers to see if there's any way that we can work out clearly before and after data. And thank you really for drawing this to my attention. It is the first time I've learned about it. Thank you.
Councillor Shepherd, if you have a very brief comment.
Very brief. Yes, thank you for bringing that up tonight. We have discussed it in the past, and there have been additions to other roads, including Manor Drive. So it is a flexible moving situation, but I would like to work with the portfolio holder and with the chair to see if we can add Cortlands Road in. If it's feasible, I can't say. I'm not the highways expert.
Thank you, Councillor.
But we will see what we can do and take this up after the meeting. Okay, thank you,
Councillor Shepherd. We're pressed for time. So could I... Right, and could I ask Rukshana Bilamoria?
My question's already been asked and you didn't answer it anyway, so I'm withdrawing my question.
Okay, that question's been withdrawn. Could I ask Rachel Smith, please?
Good evening, everyone. My question is, given the high air pollution levels on King Charles Road prior to the installation of the modal filter and the wider issue of air pollution and associated morbidity and mortality within the borough, which is 6.2% of all mortality in the borough, is attributable to air pollution, what is the committee committed to doing to address these now that the decision about the King Charles modal filter has been moved to a different committee?
Chair, well, it hasn't. As I explained earlier, we were examining whether we could move it to place committee as part of the issues that we had with the pre-election period. And as has been said on several occasions this evening so far, this is a matter which will be considered by this committee.
Thank you. And I would probably just add that the borough has a sustainable transport policy, and and we will be making decisions based on adhering to that policy going forward. I hope
Great.
that answers your question.
Great, thank you.
So thank you very much to all the people who have taken the time to come and ask questions. That is the end of our question time for today. I just wanted to say, moving on to the next item, item 2, petitions. There's been no notice of intention to submit a petition. If we then move on to item 3, apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence received from Councillor Liz Green, Alison Holt and Diane White due to council business. And we also received apologies from Councillor Khan.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm just going to pause for a minute to allow things to settle down. I'm sorry, if could I ask people to take the conversations outside, please, so we can carry on with the business. Okay, thank you very much. We'll continue. Item 4, declarations of interest. Members are asked to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests or any other registrable or non-registrable interests relevant to items on the agenda. Do members have any declarations of interest? Councillor Schapper, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to read out my declaration of interest. I would like to declare another registrable interest as in relation to the consideration of the NSIL application for the Fish Ponds Pathway project in agenda item 6 and the consideration of councillor ward funding allocation to support the Friends of Fish Ponds volunteer days in agenda item 7. As I am a member of the Friends of Fish Ponds, I will withdraw from the meeting and take no part in the debate or vote on those 2 items. Thank you, Chair.
Do I see any other councillors? Okay, I have I'd like also to declare a registrable interest in relation to consideration of the NSIL application for the Fish Ponds Pathway project in agenda, that's item 6, and the consideration of the councillor ward funding allocation for volunteer days in agenda item 7, as I'm a board member of the Friends of Fish Ponds Park Management Committee. And so I will also withdraw from the meeting and take no part in the debate. Thank you very much, councillors. Moving on to minutes. Everybody will have seen a copy of the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of January, 2024. Do members agree to confirm the minutes as correct record?
Agreed.
Okay, that's unanimous. I'll sign those later. And moving on. So we now move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is the Neighbourhood Community Infrastructure Levy, or NSIL applications. Members of the committee and meeting participants may refer to Appendix A of the agenda pack. And tonight, we're going to consider 6 applications for funding. So I'm going to suggest the following order to consider the applications. We'll first consider application number 5, the Net Zero Business Outreach in Surbiton and Tolworth, to allow relevant officers to leave early to attend a council-supported event. And then we'll consider applications 1, 2, 3, and 6, and move application number 4, which is the in relation to fish ponds, to the last, to allow Councillor Schapper and myself to withdraw from the meeting. The Vice Chair, Councillor Herlinger, will chair the meeting for application number 4. And in the next agenda item, We'll also consider Councillor Ward funding allocation for the Friends of Fish Ponds Volunteer Days. So, can I invite Paul Young, our Infrastructure Planning and Delivery Program Manager, to give a brief introduction of the overview of the context, financial data and project monitoring before we individually debate and vote on individual items. So,
thank you, Chair. I'll keep it brief, given we've had a workshop on this and obviously we're overrunning a little bit. So very quickly, we have a total of 6 NSIL bids for consideration for a total of 155,000 or thereabouts. Just all the financial data is in the report. We've had the workshop on the situation, but very sort of in a nutshell, really. If members were to allocate funds to all the projects that are under consideration today, then based upon the sort of historic data of what's coming in Surbiton and current trends, which aren't looking too positive, but we remain optimistic, I would forecast a budget of around 300,000 for the next round of NSIL bids, and obviously we've got a current one of about 344. So I'll move swiftly on, I think, and we'll introduce the first bid, and that is the net zero. I will do a very quick introduction. Iona is here to go over in a bit more detail. But basically, the bidder is seeking £1,790 for the net zero outreach project. This is designed to reach out and support small, medium-sized businesses based in Surbiton and Tolworth to improve their resilience, save resources, and accelerate towards net zero carbon emissions. Also reduce their costs and try and help the borough sort of obtain its carbon neutrality objectives essentially through workshops, providing advice and sharing of information. So the funding itself would cover 6 outreach breakfast workshops with businesses, 3 in Surbiton, 3 in Tolworth, and that the project aims to address barriers for change by improving the knowledge of these businesses and encouraging collaboration and cooperation. And I'll hand over to Iona, who can hopefully take any questions, explain a bit more.
Welcome to the committee. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the very good summary on that. Kingston, we have Kingston Council has a climate action plan which has objectives. Their aim is to become in its own operations carbon neutral by 2030, and the Borough to become carbon neutral by the whole Borough by 2038. So businesses contribute 13.4% in their emissions, CO2 emissions, and from their operations, plus the emissions of, they contribute to the emissions from the transport, which is 35.5% emissions from the transport in our borough. So this project contributes to transition to green economy, and through 3 objectives that we have for the green economy: decarbonize eco-innovation and growth of businesses, decarbonize businesses, and developing green skills. So it contributes directly to decarbonizing of the businesses and indirectly to eco-innovation and growth of businesses and the skills that people who work in businesses, employees, and business themselves need to have in order to decarbonize. Surveys have shown that 38% of businesses would like to take action, and they are against the climate change, but they don't know how to do it. So therefore, we're looking to, through collaboration, to engage with businesses in Tolworth and Surbiton, improve their knowledge, make it easy for them, make it enjoyable, and demonstrating the financial rewards that it has if they decarbonize. The project will focus on 3 topics: waste reduction and target the hospitality sector, reduction on energy consumption, and transition to low-carbon transport. It will be based on projects we have already delivered, good practice examples, and demonstrating the financial viability, and working with Kingston Green Business Community, which now has 97 members. And a lot of these members are businesses who are based in Surbiton and Kingston. And tonight in Kingston Borough Business Awards, there are 2 of Surbiton businesses which have worked with us before in Surbiton food waste, smart food waste project, and they have been shortlisted for the awards. I'm looking forward to be there and with some other colleagues and see who are the winners and the green winners and other businesses who contribute enormously to the borough's economic situation and as well support residents into employment and through other initiatives. Waste reduction, as I said, that's one of the objectives. We'll build in Surbiton smart food waste pilot. We had 3 months pilot with worked. We spoke with 35 businesses, 14 of them, including a school and a nursery, joined the pilot, the smart food waste, which means the segregation of food waste from general waste, and that within 3 months resulted in 1.4 tons of food waste to be collected and 6 tons of CO2 to be saved. And just 14 businesses, 12 businesses and 2 schools in 3 months. We can imagine what kind of difference we can make if this can be a whole year and all the businesses in hospitality sector. We'll work with UK Hospitality, which has tools and carbon calculator to help businesses to learn how to put targets and plans in the future. Reduction on energy consumption is very important as well because 3% to 10% of business costs go to energy, particularly with the current cost of energy. We'll collaborate with energy experts and consultants who will come, and this is some of the cost in this project, to have the experts to help businesses and taking the experts to businesses. This is the outreach project, the important. Don't wait the businesses to come to our offices or to webinars, but going there in the morning or later in the evening or lunchtime when they, depending on the businesses, they have time to talk with them and advise them. And transition to low carbon transport project will work them to help them to understand how to decarbonize, working with their employees, how to reduce their negative impact of their transport, and particularly with the ULEZ expansion, how to find other ways that are energy, which are emissions, low carbon emissions.
Excuse me, and yes. I was just wondering, could in the interest of time, I was wondering if you could draw your comments to a close. We have had a workshop on this, so we're fairly familiar with the project so far, and I think the members here might have a few questions for you as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, did you want to finish? Did you want to wrap up?
Okay, I can wrap up.
Yeah, just
already my colleague mentioned the outcomes, the 6 events, the 6 outreach events, to engage with 80 businesses and 40 businesses to participate. At least, and we have direct impacts, the knowledge that we get the business environmental plans, 40 environmental plans, champions to develop. We have already developed champions in Surbiton. We'd like to develop champions, businesses who become champions in Tolworth as well, and reduction in waste. We'll have a CO2 reduction as well, and community benefits. And businesses hire people locally, and people as well who learn from how businesses are behaving, changing the behavior of residents, which is very important on that. And littering through food waste will improve the area, and particularly in Surbiton, which is currently many units were closed. This will bring up the morality of local businesses and contribute to that to the group as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's I think these are laudable objectives and objectives. Yeah. Turn. I won't say anything rude. Please, Councillor Waldridge, please.
Call me anything you like, really, Chair. I love a bit of passion, and you've got a bit of passion. Surprised it's such a small amount of money. We need to roll this sort of stuff out greatly within the area. We have worked together on this sort of stuff. I help facilitate it. I just also, yes, I mean, you're a great advocate, and you got the money as far as I'm concerned. I'd just like us also to consider business generally in our part of the world. Ty, Andrew, and Mariana's part of the world generally as well. But I'm just saying that generally because it gives me an opportunity to say that. But yes, it's a very positive outcome. Thank you.
Thank you too.
Do we have any further questions? Oh, yes, Councillor Tyler.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a fantastic project. It's something we will support. Can I ask how many businesses in Tolworth Broadway agreed to participate?
So in Tolworth, we had a project. We work with Kingston University and students to undertake surveys. And in summer, as part of their dissertation, they interviewed around 25, 30 businesses, and to identify the needs of businesses and what kind of needs they have and in order to decarbonize. With the question, there were detailed questions and responses from the businesses and recommendations. And the recommendations include staff training programs focusing on waste reduction, encourage customer awareness and participation, establish clear policies and guidelines for businesses, explore partnerships.
Right, yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Particularly in Tolworth Broadway, we have a waste problem, so sure this will probably help to resolve some of those issues as well. And I know lots of businesses there, so if you need any help, you can. I'm quite happy to help you.
Yes, and it's very good as well. Tolworth is a good practice example for the Borough because it has a lot of ethnic businesses. And the ethnic businesses, the areas and high streets and town centers who have ethnic businesses are stronger than the high streets where they rely on chains and national and large businesses.
Right. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank
It's
you.
good practice
Thank you,
example.
councillors. Yes, and thank you very much for that. Do we have any further questions? Herman, did we have any members of the public? No, no comments from the public. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to the our debate on the on this award. So I'll now move from the chair of the following recommendation that the ENSIL application for the project Net Zero Business Outreach in Surbiton and Tolworth is set out in Annex 5 of the report for the sum of £1,790 be approved. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to try and beat Councillor Waldridge to it.
I believe Councillor Waldridge got in there first. So I'm glad to see everybody so eager. Any members of the committee who wish to speak on this, please raise your hand. Councillor Manders.
Thank you. It's, well, I must say, having spoken so often this evening, I'm sure people are getting sick of the sound of my voice, but I thought I would put my two pennies worth in here. Can I just say that this grant is astonishingly good value for money? Yes. And I'm the co-chair on behalf of the council in the Kingston Green Business Community, which is a joint initiative with also the commercial and business sector in the borough. And the three areas that are covered by this particular initiative of waste, energy and transport are not only an opportunity to help businesses to reduce their carbon emissions, but it also helps improve their bottom line as well and helps them make them a more viable business. So there's two advantages really coming out of this, not just the environmental one, So I would heartily recommend to the committee tonight that we approve this grant. And thank you very much indeed for hearing me again, Chair.
Never get tired of your voice. There we go. Councillor Davies, please.
Yeah, I just want to say really for the benefit of the film that we have got in front of us a very detailed report with a full risk assessment and so on, and a proper breakdown of costs. So it's all very impressively done. And so I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Do I have any further comments? Okay. Can I take this as unanimously approved? Okay, so that is approved unanimously. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming and presenting that to us tonight. And enjoy the Business Awards. Right, so moving back to Paul Young.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Just move on to the second bid. That's for Surbiton Library. In this case, the bidder is seeking £20,000 to turn part of Surbiton Library into a community hub. Essentially, the funding would be used to reconfigure a room within the library, which is currently used for study and access to IT, and turn it into a more flexible space or community hub. In terms of physical upgrades, that would include the installation of a pod, upgrading of various furniture, installation of power and data services. Unfortunately, the representative for the bid is actually at the opening of a digital tour project at Kingston Museum, which was funded by NSIL, victim of its own success perhaps. But hopefully all the information is in the report and you won't come at me with any difficult questions, but I'll try and answer them if you do.
Do we have any questions for the officers, members? Yes, Councillor Shapper.
Thank you, Chair. Just a really quick question. Is there scope within this model for any sort of enhancements or additions at a later stage? Because I know a lot of residents have talked to me about opportunities for, like, for instance, initiatives, community initiatives that involve sort of the cafe type format. So I'm just wondering if there's any scope in the future for an expansion or additions as we go through with the community hub model. Thank you.
Yes, obviously we feed that back to the bidder, but I understand that question was raised in the workshop as well, and a positive response was received to that, so the answer yes.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions? Do we have any comments from the public? No registered comments from the public. Okay, so we'll move on to debate, to debate the recommendation. And I'll move from the chair the following recommendation: the neighbourhood community infrastructure levy application for the project Surbiton Library Community Hub is set out in Annex 1 of the report for the sum of £20,000 to be approved. And do I have a seconder? Well, I saw Councillor Shapper's hand first, so thank you very much for that. So, if anybody would like to speak in support of the motion, please raise your hand. Councillor Shapper, please go ahead.
It's just to say I think this is a hugely impressive piece of work, because in particular what lockdown showed us as a council is the importance of community hubs and areas where residents can come together to access services. And I think that was something that came out of the lockdown, where we had a Kingston Stronger Together model. And I think this is what you're seeing here is really a shift in looking at community resilience and how you bring communities together with different concerns and issues, and obviously looking at the evidence that we gathered in recent years. I think this is absolutely about building a hub where you can resilience is key, and also looking at health and well-being of our communities. And I think I'm absolutely thrilled that this is something that's going to be seen to be coming through, and looking at prevention and early intervention. I think there's so many issues that I could name, which I know we haven't got really a lot of time for tonight, but I can see this being the start of something very, very positive in our community, and I'm looking forward for it to begin. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And Councillor Wooldridge, please.
Yeah, it's a very positive, much-needed resource. I mean, generations, I learnt to read at Surbiton. My children learnt to read at Surbiton. You go there to the kiddies section and it's packed. It's wonderful. The next tranche of money, Paul, I would like to see some love given to Tolworth for the next tranche of money, so that'd be great. But it's very positive, very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wooldridge. I'll also add my comments in support of this bid. I think this will do a lot to build more resilient neighbourhoods. It will also it does a lot for digital inclusion and provides a much needed resource for people to more readily access council services. So I think has many benefits. So I'm definitely in favour of this. So having seen no further hands, should we take this to the vote? Is this unanimous? Yes, thank you very much. So we're unanimously agreed on that one. And shall we move on to the next one, Paul? Thank you.
Yeah, let's move swiftly on. So the third project is Elmbridge Meadows, and this seeks £51,200 to restore the Hogsmill River, which is a rare chalk stream through Elmbridge Meadows. It will focus mainly on in-channel improvements, including creating berms, regrading the banks, and creating formal dog access points to improve habitats for aquatic wildlife to thrive and the community to enjoy the river. The bidder, Ed Byers, is here to run through the project and answer any questions about what a berm is, because I don't know. A bit more detail on trying to answer any questions that you may have.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Yes, thanks very much for having me. Yeah, I have spoken to community groups before, and the debate does expand a lot about rivers, so do stop me if I go on. Yeah, so I'm Ed Byers. I'm a senior project officer at the South East Rivers Trust. We're a charity which works to enhance rivers and catchments for the benefits of nature and people. The Enriching Elmbridge Meadows project is basically aimed at enhancing and restoring the Hogsmill River, which is a globally rare chalk stream. So there's estimated to be only 220 in the world, of which 90% are in England. So it's very rare habitat, known for its good water quality, which yeah, I think we should be shouting about. So we're looking to enhance that, as well as the biodiversity and habitat in the wider local nature reserve, and also importantly carry out a lot of engagement and education work around the river, the issues it faces, and the project itself. In terms of the specific work that we're looking to do more widely is in-channel restoration of the river to compensate for historic sort of damage that has been carried out, such as over-widening of the channel, over-straightening, siltation of the channel, and also over-abstraction. We'll be looking to create a new backwater habitat which offers refuge for fish and invertebrates. We will be looking to manage how dogs access the river. So we'll be doing this through a mixture of education and engagement to raise awareness with local residents, and then also physical work such as dead hedging, which is basically creating a barrier between the path and the river. And this is designed to basically reduce erosion of sections of the channel, which can put a lot of silt into the channel, and is also starting to undermine the footpath, which is a relatively new installation in the local nature reserve. And then at the same time, as well as that, in appreciation of sort of understanding the balance of how different people use the area, we'll also be putting in formal dog access areas to try and manage how they get into the river and limit the impact that they have. So it's all about balancing those needs in the channel. We will also be introducing water voles to complement an earlier release in September 2022, as well as carrying out extensive education and engagement more broadly. In terms of the specific SIL budget proposal, so we have secured funding from other partners at Natural England and Thames Water, so I believe this offers very good sort of match funding ratio and value for money should Kingston support it. This specific funding would be used to install interpretation materials, so interpretation boards, for example, to raise awareness amongst the community, help them understand that the area that they're in and appreciate it further. Host a number of community events and really just get people stuck into helping with the restoration. So it might be planting up new features, doing some of the dead hedging, balsam bashing as well. Sorry, these are technical terms. Also installing benches for more in the wider local nature reserve. The formal dog access areas, and also just to go bigger in terms of the work that we do, because it's a really unique opportunity to restore the river. A lot of the cost is just about getting contractors down there. So once they're there, this is a really good opportunity to do as much as we can. Just for the sake of being quick, I won't get into too much more detail, but we've carried out a lot of education and engagement events already to date to try and raise awareness in the community and also hear their viewpoints. So we've hosted sort of 3 guided walks, had pop-up stalls at 3 events. We've had 3 talks to community groups, and then we've also had educational events, mostly walking along the river, which has engaged over 300 pupils. In terms of benefits to the community, just to sum up, I think COVID in particular has kind of made people much more aware of their local areas, and people, you know, enjoy them a lot more. And I think an important part of enjoying that area is having a nature and a habitat that's in a good condition. So, for example, through the work we'll enhance habitat for fish, and where fish are, we get herons, we get kingfishers, and people get that unique experience with wildlife that really inspires people and improves their well-being. And I think also just through the work that we're doing, we'll look to increase awareness. And I think just having knowledge of a unique habitat on their doorstep, a globally rare chalk stream, and understanding the value of it are the first steps towards caring about it and wanting to protect it and offering resilience into the future as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that, Ed. I think our members may have a few questions for you. So I would say, do I see any hands for questions? I certainly have. One from the resident there. Oh, right. Well, we generally don't. Yeah, okay. But Councillor Waldridge, are you raising your hand?
Yeah, it's just, I do have a question. I want to see a beaver in there.
That would be very good.
No, I'm just saying,
technically, that's not a question.
No. And it's a great, wonderful resource. I use it on a very regular basis with my border terrier, who loves to try, does get in the water, loves to swim. It's a wonderful resource. And, you know, the herons and the kingfisher this time of the year, you do see them.
Okay. Did you have a question?
Well, I could talk on age. I could talk on for quite some time.
We were trying to ask questions at this point.
Question, yeah. I want a beaver in there.
Right.
Thank you.
Can you have a beaver? Right. I'm assuming probably not.
We're starting with water voles.
Okay. Councillor Manders has a question.
Yes, I've got a question, and I'll, when we finish questions, I just want to make a comment. So the Hogs Mill does have a problem with pollution. What are the sources of pollution in the Hogs Mill?
There's quite a range of sources of pollution, unfortunately. So I suppose primary ones are we do have storm tank discharges, which are basically tanks managed by Thames Water to hold combined foul sewage and rainwater during heavy storm events. The intention is when our sewer system's at capacity, these tanks fill up, they create the capacity, and then they'll drain back into our sewage treatment works. Unfortunately, we've kept on, they were built in the 30s, upgraded in the 60s, and so as we keep building more urban areas, we get more runoff. They discharge into the river a lot more regularly than they should do. So they are consented, but they are discharging more than we ever expected. There's also road runoff is a serious problem. So we get oils, chemicals, heavy metals on the road from vehicles. Again, our whole drainage system is designed to discharge into rivers, so when we get rainfall, that washes that in. We also have problems with misconnected sewers, so if somebody potentially has a bit of a dodgy plumber, they connect the wrong bits up, suddenly their washing machine, sink and all that is connected up to the system that discharges into the river. So, yeah, those would be three main ones. That there's other issues facing our rivers, unfortunately, as well.
Right, okay. And Councillor Davies, you had a question?
Yeah, I had a very similar question, which was one time when I was on the Hogs Mill, there were people, they do water studies every month or so, and they were talking about runoff from farms further down. I didn't even know this was a thing, and phosphorus and phosphor chemicals and so on going. Is there anything you can do to sort of mitigate against whatever's coming in from further up?
Yeah, sorry, that's a really good question and a good point, actually. I was focused very, very urban there, but I know that the Bonesgate, for example, does get quite a lot of silt washing into it from farms further upstream. So we do engage landowners and farmers to discuss sort of how they manage their land. And how we can work with them to try and sort of improve that for themselves and for the environment. So we talk a lot about sort of land management practices, which would help reduce sort of soil erosion and all the pollutants that come with that. And again, we also might talk to landowners about sort of low input farming, so they're putting in fewer chemicals, and then fewer chemicals can wash off as well. So those are some examples, but yeah, we do look to try and work across the whole catchment and not just focus on the river.
Okay, thank you very much. I will come to you. I will come to you, Bridget. Yes, thank you. Could you just briefly explain to me what a chalk stream is, because I'm a little confused.
So a chalk stream is basically it gets its flow from the chalk aquifer. So the Hogs Mill, I think it's getting it from the chalk in the South Downs, and so instead of, you might get clay rivers, which basically a lot of their water is above ground runoff, and so it can pick up a lot of nasties basically. Chalk streams traditionally would have got all its water from the groundwater, and it would have been very clean, would have had quite a nice even flow throughout the year instead of sort of flashiness. It wouldn't typically respond too much to rainfall, and it because it's got that typically nice pristine water, it can give rise to very unique sort of species.
Oh, right. So this is a very special.
Fortunately, I could get into what we basically because the demand for water goes up and keeps going up. There's a lot of issues with abstraction for drinking supply, and so that takes from the river, and the Hogs Mill does suffer from low flows in general. And we do have discussions and put pressure on water companies to look at opportunities to reduce that.
Okay, no, that's great. No, thank you very much for that. So I think we've come to the end of our questions, but I think we had perhaps a comment from a member of the audience, and I was wondering if you would perhaps come forward to the microphone for the benefit of the room.
I might be talking absolute rubbish here, but I'll say it anyway.
Okay, well, public comments.
I think what you did, first of all, I've no idea where Elmbridge Meadows.
Could you speak into the microphone for the benefit of the people who may be watching the video?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. First of all, I don't know where Elmbridge Meadows is. Where is it compared to here?
Well, this is in this. Yeah, there's a map in there, but it's in Berrylands.
In Berrylands,
yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's concerning me? So this is all wonderful, but somewhere along the line, when they're building the Cambridge estate, they're going to use heat source network, and they're going to take water from the Hogs Mill. How what have I heard about that? How is it going to work?
Fortunately, we have an expert here.
Oh, right.
Chair,
over to Councillor Manders.
Thank you. I can rightfully claim that I know more about this than any other person in this room at the moment. and it's a project that I've worked on for several years. Though the idea is to take the heat out of the cleaned up wastewater which is discharged into the Hogs Mill by the Thames Water Hogs Mill sewage treatment plant. So the sewage treatment process, Chair, I won't go into too much detail about it, but all I can say is that it adds heat all along the process. And so that heat is discharged into the atmosphere, but it's discharged into the wastewater, the cleaned up wastewater at the end of the sewage treatment process, which goes into the Hogs Mill. So the idea
So it's okay.
is to extract as much of that heat as possible before it goes into the Hogs Mill. So, in fact, the wastewater will be cooler than it is at the moment.
Because I understand that heat is actually a source of pollution in itself.
Yeah, it could be said that, but the Hogs Mill waste plant has been there for a long time, and so it's allowable. But there are issues with heat, and it's been one of the issues around the Thames Water abstraction project in the Thames, which is being proposed by Thames Water, because that's a new project. But anyway, the heat is classed as zero carbon, and we will use it to heat buildings. We'll use it to heat the hospital, the university, the Cambridge Road estate, and also the new leisure centre when it's developed as well.
Okay, I think we're starting to get a little bit
There'll be plenty for other buildings as well in
no.
Kingston.
Okay, well, I believe we're getting a little bit off topic here. But anyways, thank you very much for the comment. Thank you very much for answering our questions. And so I'm going to move on to members' debate, and I'll start by moving the recommendation from the chair. So the recommendation is that the NSIL application for the project enriching Elmbridge Meadows, as set out in Annex 2 of the report for the sum of £51,200 be approved. Do I have a seconder?
Peter seconds, sir.
There we go. And a second from Councillor Hurlinger. So would members of the committee who wish to speak please raise their hand? I see Councillor Davies, Hurlinger, Manders, and Tylan. Please, in that order.
Yeah, it's just a bit of a comment. On the very day that I was reading about this report, Radio 4 had the same thing being described on the Today programme with the technical term of wiggling rivers, which I rather loved. It was all explained very beautifully, and again, to the benefit of the film, if anyone doesn't know about it, they should definitely listen to that. This is not really your problem at all, but I would love it if the two bits of the footpath across that runs alongside the Hogs Mill could be joined up across the A3 somehow, because it's just awful at the moment. But that's not your problem at all.
I suspect that might be beyond the scope of this project.
Yeah, absolutely. I want a footbridge. Yeah.
Good point. So bring something to bring to committee another time. Councillor Hurlinger, please.
As councillors will notice on page 10, sort of the public consultation included walking the site with the two Alexander Ward councillors it's in our ward. Thank you very much for taking the time to show off the ideas that you were putting forward, and to echo sort of what you've already said. It's great that we are being one of the funders, and that there's funding coming from other sources, which is obviously great for our ward.
Councillor Manders.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Along with Councillor Hurlinger, I'm also the ward councillor for Alexandra Ward, which contains the Elmbridge Meadows area. And I fully support this application, Chair. It's very much needed. The Hogs Mill is precious, but it has problems, as we've heard tonight. We've heard problems with pollution. And also, because it was the victim of that enthusiasm between the 1930s and the 1960s to basically make rivers straight, make the water discharge as fast as possible, and to essentially really make them into canals or drains, really effectively. And if you look at a Victorian map of the area, and it's available in the Guildhall with the records. You will see that the Hogs Mill through Kingston that looked a bit like a kind of mini Mississippi. It was very, very windy and almost to the stage of having oxbow legs. Anyway, that was then channelled, and interestingly enough, Kingston Cemetery is the area of land around the crematoria. That was actually the river at one time, and the area of the river there is just completely straight, and that the soil was extracted, and then it was then basically filled up the old bank of the river. So what the South East Rivers Trust is doing is essentially trying to restore those aspects of a natural river as much as one can do with the constraints of basically a straight channel. And so they're putting all sorts of things in to slow down the river, and to make it more viable for wildlife. But there's also this pollution problem that is outside of the boundary really of this grant application tonight, but we need to look at. But can I say that I'm very grateful that the South East Rivers Trust is helping us manage the river. I'm very grateful that there's such a resource to do so, and I will be in touch to talk to you about the long-term things that we can do about tackling the pollution in the Hogs Mill. Thank you.
Yep, I'd love that. Yeah, that'd be great.
Councillor Thailand, please.
Thank you, Chair. I live close by to Elmbridge Meadows, and I've been using that for my regular walk, jogging for many years. It's a wonderful space. It's used a lot by the local community, and I fully support this application, and I'm sure this will improve the park and make sure that most of the people use it. So thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thank you.
And yes, I would simply add that it was a very impressive report. I enjoyed reading it, especially seeing exactly what you're going to be doing to restore some of the wetland habitats along the side of the stream. That just looked amazing, and I look forward to seeing that work being done. So if there are no further comments from members, can I take this as unanimous, or do we need to go to a vote? Unanimous? Yes? Okay, so that passes unanimously. Thank you very much for coming and presenting that.
Thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. Right, so move on to the next item.
Thank you, Chair. The next one is a mini history, and the bidder for this is seeking $22,000 for a mini history project. This aims to create a piece of public art to celebrate the history of the John Cooper Garage in Hollyfield Road, Surbiton, and raise awareness of the story that surrounds it. The bidder, Robin, is here to run through the project in more detail and try and answer some questions. Over to you, Robin.
Welcome, Robin.
Thank you very much, and good evening, councillors. This is the latest I've been out for a long, long while. So thank you very much. Most of you will know this year marks the 60th anniversary of the Mini Cooper winning the Monte Carlo Rally for the first time. It was a legendary moment. I mean, I don't think we grasp how big it was. The car ended up on the Palladium stage. It was front pages of the papers. The Beatles sent congratulatory notes to the driver. And it was designed in Surbiton. And it's the fact that so few people know about this remarkable piece of local innovation and enterprise and creativity that we think we need to celebrate. On the 21st of January, we had the launch of this year's Mini Moments project at Waterloo Station with the winning car. It was quite amazing to see people had travelled nationally to come and see it. Obviously, people from Kingston, I say obviously, they didn't have to, but a lot of people from Kingston went up there, and then you had just people who were going through the station. What was fabulous was the number of people looking at the display and saying, I had no idea this was done in Kingston, I had no idea this was done in Surbiton. We want to mark that. This year, we will have a book published in April called Speed in Suburbia, which features 3 local speed stories, not just John Cooper, the Mini Cooper and his motoring cars, but Brabham and also Donald Campbell, all of whom have strong local links to our borough and maintain the sense that actually brilliant things come out of suburbs like Kingston. On Saturday the 18th of May, we will have a special event in the Hollyfield Road with what looks like 200 vintage minis coming, having performed a Mini Monty. We should have a car for every year from 1964 to the modern day. BMW Mini are going to bring their new green electric Mini that hasn't even really been out yet to come and display, and we will have a 1964 Routemaster coming along. The Italian Job will be shown in the Surbiton Assembly Rooms, and young bands will be reinterpreting hits of the 60s. And because of the success of the launch in Waterloo, the British Motor Museum have said they want to bring the winning Mini back into Surbiton, and it will also take part in the Mini Monty. We will then have a garden at Hampton Court Garden Festival celebrating the story, and it's hoped that the Surbiton Festival in September, with Robbie's good health permitting, will also feature the Mini as part of that, which is wonderful, but it will disappear in a year. And the important thing of this is a legacy, something for people to come to, something for people to visit and appreciate nationally, that this was the home of innovative thinking, and for local people to take pride in the story. And we know from the David Bowie mural, so lovingly filled in by TfL, that it draws people from a large area to come into our borough and not just see the story, but begin to appreciate the beauty of it and the opportunity of it. So what we want to do is create a piece of public art, but we want to do it with the community. So a lot of the early stages are going out into the university, the college, local schools and groups to get their ideas and thoughts, and then working with the wonderful one-to-one collective, and Salah is here this evening, is then to create a piece of bespoke art, which will then, having been judged as to it's the winning design, will then be created and cited there, and will become a lasting memorial to an amazing story, and something we think that the council, the residents, and our business community should feel proud of, because that same spirit of innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship should thrive in this borough today.
Well, thank you very much for that. And do members have any questions for? And yes, Councillor Gonsalves, and then Councillor Wooldridge.
Thank you, Robbie.
Yes.
I just had a question about the location of the artwork. I've seen that it hasn't been decided, but is the plan to have it on private or public property?
Well, we haven't decided because I think it needs to allow people an opportunity to think where it should be. I think our initial thoughts were, and weirdly enough it comes up on the agenda later because there's a decent map because of the cycle lane, but on the outskirts of fish ponds, but not within it, is a little green area with a tree, and that feels, if it was agreed, would be a perfect site because it means all people going up and down the Hollyfield Road would see it. And you know, there's a blue plaque and a red plaque on the building, but only a certain type of person goes around looking for plaques. Whereas actually having that piece of art where we think it could go, and again, subject to highways, planning, and everybody else who loves to have a go at this sort of stuff, we think that could be a good site for it.
Thank you. Councillor Wooldridge.
No, I'll come on afterwards if you don't mind. I've got a couple of, yeah.
Okay. And Councillor Manders.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Robin. Are you going to include the John Cooper Twinny?
Well, we want to tell as much of the Cooper story as possible, and we know the family are coming up to the event on the 18th, or at least we're pretty sure they're coming up. So I think there's some really good opportunities to celebrate a number of their creations along the way.
Chair, shall I explain what the John Cooper Twinny was?
Please, if you can be brief.
Well, John Cooper, as one of the experiments with the Mini, decided to put an additional engine in the back of a Mini. So there was two 1300cc engines, one in the front and one in the back. And doing 100 miles an hour down the A3, the Kingston bypass, unfortunately, the engine came loose at the back and did an immediate right turn. And anyway, he was thrown clear and survived, but needless to say, the vehicle was a write-off. So it's a very interesting story. Make a very spectacular mural, I would think, Robin.
There we go. Can we have a recreation? Councillor Waldridge.
Thank you, Chair. And of course, don't forget, there is a theme going through this whole event this evening. He did live in Tolworth, Princess Avenue. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. The obligatory Tolworth plug. Thank you very much. Okay, are there any further questions for Robin here? No? Okay. Well, I will now move from the chair the recommendation that the ENSIL application for the project, a mini history 60th anniversary, as set out in Annex 3 of the report, for the sum of £22,000 be approved. Do I have a seconder? I saw Councillor Yoganathan. There we go. So thank you. Would members of the committee who wish to speak please raise a hand? Councillor Tyler.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's a wonderful project. Committee Brain has a track record of delivering good quality projects, reviving the heritage of Tolworth, and you have already put the Tolworth on the map. And thank you very much, and I fully support this project.
There. Any further comments? Councillor Waldridge.
Because of the family history in Tolworth, we fully support it. Thank you.
All right, and I'd just like to go on record that it happened in Surbiton, opposite the fish ponds Park. So thank you very much. Are there any further comments? Okay, so can I take that as unanimous, or should we have a vote? Agreed, agreed. Okay, that is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Robin, for coming here tonight.
Thank you, councillors.
Paul, please move on.
Thank you, Chair. We'll move on to bid 5. This is All Our Stories, which is a working title, and this will tell a new alternative history of Surbiton that reflects the increasing diversity of the borough. It formed part of the Kingston 2025 celebrations, and this is an opportunity to bring to light the untold stories that shape the borough's past, present and future, to create a new narrative surrounding our heritage. The locations, content and exact format will be determined through ongoing public engagement, which is essentially happening now. So this is a bit different in the sense it's a framework bid at this stage, and the reason for this is because the project timeframes just don't really fit well with the ENSIL bid timeframe. However, so once the consultation has completed and the proposals are finalised in response, it's anticipated or this will come back to the committee. So at the moment they are just asking for a provisional allocation until that is all done, and they can present, the bidder can present a finalised report for councillors to consider. Catherine, who is the bidder, is again at the ENSIL, the Open Up Digitised Museum Digital Tour project in Kingston Museum. So again, I'll try and deal with some questions if there are any.
Thank you,
Chair.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Do we have any questions for Paul regarding this? So a quick question. So this is related to the Athelston 2025 bid. Celebration. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Are there any? Well, that's obviously going to be a historic moment, marking another landmark reason for people to come to Kingston, and we're celebrating 1,100 years of Saxon kings here. So, do any other members have questions? No, thank you. So I'll now move the recommendation that the ENSIL application for the project All Our Stories Surbiton, as set out in Annex 6 of the report, for the sum of £20,000 be approved. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Councillor Harlinger, thank you very much. And if members of the committee who wish to speak would please raise their hands. Yes, Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Chair. I know it mentions expected community benefits to be confirmed, but actually, overall, really, it was what drives this is about engagement with the public and residents. So actually, you explore their ideas through that consultation process, I think is so important, and that you drive those initiatives forward by the collaborative element that's here with residents themselves. I think that's really key, that it's driven by them and it's about how residents would like to see their local area develop. So I think as a sort of expected benefit, whilst that there are many, I think it's about how we engage and what comes out of that engagement process and how we're listening to residents. So I think that's how I think you support the development of, like it says here, new networks, activities and events, but also about, how you work with residents and that they are part of the development of a local area because they have, the history and the knowledge as well. So it's shared knowledge and experience that I think helps us in that process. So I absolutely think this is key going forward, and I'd love to see how we can build on something like this as part of our next Surbiton Neighbourhood strategy, because having been so closely involved in it 3 or 4 years ago, this will form part of that. Our community plan, actually, as it's called here, Neighbourhood Community Plan. So I think it goes round full circle, and what you see are key areas and objectives that we want to deliver going forward, and this is how we do it. So thank you, Chair.
Do I have any more comments from members? I would simply add then my own support for this. I think it's very interesting, that we're looking at this in terms of all our stories, and as we heard from the previous applicant, he's surfacing one of our big stories for our area. There are plenty more. There are plenty more stories out there that I think we can, as Councillor Shepherd was saying, work with the community and incorporate those into our growing and developing and evolving community. So, if there are no further comments, I would just say, can we take this to the vote, and would that be unanimous, or do we need to vote?
Agreed.
Agreed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the next item is the fish pond. So I shall hand over chairing responsibilities to my colleague, and see you on the other side.
So the next one to consider is the allocation of 40,000 of NSIL funding for the project Fish Ponds Pathway Project, Annex 4 in the report. First, can I ask Elliot Newton, Biodiversity Officer, to give a brief introduction?
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, councillors. The first thing to say, David Mason is the lead applicant on this report. I'm sort of standing in for him, and I'm sure, as all of you are aware, Dave has a significant track record of delivering path projects across many of our parks across the borough. And today, the focus of this application is Fish Ponds Park, which is actually currently in the process of a big Pond restoration project, which some of you might be aware of because obviously it was funded through NSIL about this time last year. But today we're looking at the footpath infrastructure, looking to improve a path that actually can pose a bit of a hazard to some of you who might have actually experienced walking in the park. It's from the Hollyfield Road entrance point leading up to the sort of the centre area of the park where the recent turning circle has just been created. So effectively this application is to try and reinstate this path to take almost so to enable residents to walk through the park, potentially after witnessing the fantastic mini project that's been spoken about already today, and moving into the park and having a sort of a continuous route rather than being confronted by, especially at the moment, significant muddy areas. Historically, the Friends Group have worked quite hard to put wood chip down. Unfortunately, that hasn't really proved a long-term solution, so this would be a long-term solution to the project to improve the sort of the general path infrastructure. What we're proposing is an amber gold path, which is what has been already implemented in the path in the central component, which is a nice sort of fitting material for the park that is wheelchair accessible, cycle accessible, and would definitely improve the sort of walking infrastructure within the park. Thank you, Chair.
Do members have any questions they would like to give to Elliot? No? And we don't have any residents. So can I now move from the Chair following recommendation, the Neighbourhood Committee Infrastructure Levy application for the project Fish Ponds Pathway Project as set out in Annex 4 of the report, the sum of 40,000 be approved. Do I have a seconder? Yes. Councillor Condalis, thank you very much. Would members of the committee wish to speak, indicate that they wish to speak? Nope? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Woodridge.
Thank you, Elliot. It's a wonderful resource we have there. And I think you've covered off, all I'm saying is I'm going to sound out and say you've covered off exactly what local residents feel about it, what has been done, and what will be done. It's a significant asset, which it's, again, generations have benefited from that spot. So it's money well spent, in our opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Nobody else wishes to speak? Can I take the amendments again? Agree. Thank you very much. Thank you. Could I now move to item 7, the Community Grants Programme, which is in Appendix B. We'll consider 3 allocations of council award funding. We'll firstly consider the second allocation, the Friends of Fish Ponds Volunteer Days. Yeah. James Greach is the officer involved. Would you like to give a brief introduction?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I don't have a lot more detail to add other than that's already in the report, but this is £500 allocation of council award funding, which has been requested to support this year's volunteer days. As set out in paragraph 10 is all the activities that the Friends undertake. As we've heard from Elliot, it is substantial, and this will be used to support their volunteer days throughout the year, mostly by paying for their insurance. Thank you, Chair.
I'll now move from the Chair the following recommendation, the allocation of £500 council award funding to support the Friends of Fish Ponds Volunteer Days as set out in paragraphs 9 to 11 of the report be approved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Thailand, thank you very much. Would members of the committee wishing to speak indicate they'd like to do so? Nobody?
Just very briefly, Chair.
Councillor Manders, yes.
Yes, just a thank you to all our volunteers who help in our parks and open spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I again take this as unanimous? Yes. Agreed. Okay. So that's approved, and we now sort of ask Councillor Reeve and Shaper to rejoin the meeting, yes. And I'll wait for Councillor Reeve to resume.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hurlinger. Our next Councillor Ward allocation is the allocation for the provision of a number of landscaping and biodiversity improvements at the Green Linnelby Road. So I'll hand over to James Geach and Elliot Newton to give a brief introduction, please.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, not a lot more detail to add to that already in the report. The Green is a council-owned green space on Linnelby Road. It is the only council green space in Tolworth Ward. Earlier this year, the council undertook a consultation on Saturday, the 27th of January, where alongside ward councillors, we got an opportunity to talk to local residents about improvements they'd like to see to this valued green space. Based on that, we would like to use this council ward funding allocation to build up a plan for the site. And the outputs we'd like to see are listed in paragraph 7 of the report. So we'd like to see new hedgerows for the entire boundary of the green. The removal of some of the old hard standing, which was used for benches. Some tree planting, new custom planters and new planting generally. A new loggery bug hotel, building on the success of the recent bug hotel that was installed in Burnley Avenue, as well as some custom bird boxes, bird feeders and new signage. Happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And perhaps, did you have any comments to add to that, Elliot?
I think, just to say, we're looking at the site comprehensively and really want to try and engage local people to sort of re-envision how these small pocket parks can actually be fantastic community resources, but also great spaces for biodiversity too. But in the interest of time, I think James has summarised it very well.
That's great. Thank you very much. Do members have any questions for the officers? Yes, Councillor Gonsalves.
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and thank you both, Elliot and James. We had a really productive session with residents that Saturday. And I just want to ask about the first item, the first bullet point about installing new hedgerows for the entire boundary of the green, because I had mixed feedback about that when we were there. So I just want to make sure that that's not set in stone and that's something that will be consulted further on.
Yep. Okay.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Very good question. So I suppose the sort of comprehensive plan for the sort of conservation of the site is definitely up for further discussion. One thing to say with regards to the hedgerows, I think it'd be good to get the nature of those sort of concerns. But one thing to say, if it's about height and visibility of the site, we would look to sort of manage those hedgerows to a certain level, so actually they don't go any higher than the existing railings, so they wouldn't pose an additional sort of visual barrier to the area.
Yeah, I think most of the comments were about potential antisocial behaviour if they grow too much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions for the officers? No? Okay. Oh, sorry, Councillor Waldridge. Yeah, no, go ahead, Councillor Waldridge.
Yeah, Elliot, it was we had a really great engagement with James and the community. I mean, they really did. It was like a constant flow.
Fantastic.
Of
I'm sorry I couldn't be there.
On that little spot. But historically, going back there have been some issues with regard to the usual stuff that goes on with benches and stuff like that. I feel that actually the officers did take that on board, most definitely, because there's a lot of history there. That's again, generations of people have been there. So getting it right is going to be really key. And people had their opinions, and and I think James took it on board. We took it on board. And it was a very productive. And I haven't really given you a question, have I?
Sure.
Well, but it was I think we learned a lot from the engagement, didn't we, James?
Sure.
A great deal. Thank you.
Just to unpack that. Sorry, Chair.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead. I suppose you could ask a question. Would you agree with my friend? That's your question.
I think something we're certainly aware from the community engagement. In fact, it was my very first home. I lived on that road. So when I was 0, that was where I was living. So I know for a long time. But we recognise that there has been antisocial behaviour in that space historically. So one thing we're looking to do is not include benches as part of this proposal. So to sort of reduce those gathering spaces and sort of street drinking opportunities.
Well, thank you very much, Elliot. Are there any further questions? No, I will move the following recommendation: the allocation of £10,000 of council award funding for the provision of a number of landscaping and biodiversity improvements at the Green, Littleby Road, as set out in paragraphs 5 to 8 of the report, be approved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Wooldridge. Thank you very much. Would any members wish to speak? Please raise your hands. Councillor Thailand.
Thank you, Chair. I think there was an incident a couple of days ago around the Lenby Road. Apparently, someone late at night, someone was hanging around there, following a lady, and they were a bit worried about it. It's dark, it's not enough lighting, so they want to make sure that, we don't want to make it that people sort of hide, so more lighting and would be better. Someone mentioned apparently the police were down there as well yesterday. But this is, I don't think it's nothing to do with the park as such, but it's just an incident. That guy then went into the space and was hiding there. So as long as there are more visibility, so I think we can make sure that happens, and that's good.
Okay, do I have any further comments from councillors regarding Councillor Gonzalez?
Thank you. Just want to say that thank you very much for putting this in place, for coming to the consultation. I think it's going to be a great addition to the wards, and it's, as James mentioned, our only green space owned by the council.
And Councillor Wooldridge.
I concur with my colleagues, and it is a great little spot. It's a great little space. You live locally, you know what can be done to it, and a safe pair of hands. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, I would just add, as the only public green space in Toworth, I think this is a worthy spot for some investment from this fund. So thank you very much. If there are no other comments, we'll take this to the vote. Can I take this as unanimous, or do we need to vote? Okay, so thank you very much. That is passed unanimously. Thank you very much, Elliot and James, for presenting that. And we move on to the next item, which is Council Award funding for the Furcrofts Manshed project. Could I ask James to give a brief introduction, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Once again, the details are in the report, but Furcroft have approached ward councillors for a £1,000 contribution to continue their Manshed project in the neighbourhood. This was a project originally which received funding from the Mayor of London's office, but the Furcroft Trust have continued, given its great success. If awarded, this allocation would allow them to purchase more materials for the shed to produce the projects they make there at the Man Shed, and the intention is to try and sell some of these products to raise more funding to allow more projects to happen in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for James on this? Okay, no, that's fine. Okay, no, so I'll now move on to the debate. Move the following recommendation that, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. There we go. So we have the motion to the allocation of £1,000 of council award funding to support Furcroft's Manshed project as set out in paragraphs 12 to 14 of the report be approved. Do I have a seconder?
I second it.
Right, okay. So a second from Councillor Manders. Does anybody wish to, any members wish to speak in support or comment on this project? Councillor Wooldridge.
From vast experience, I can assure you, a man needs his shed. Thank you.
Okay. And I would, are there any further comments? Okay. And I would just say, having read the report, this looks like a valuable project. Glad that Furcroft is making this available, and that it has the prospects of developing some self-funding capabilities because of the craft projects that they will be doing there. So if there are no further comments, go to a vote. Can I take this as unanimous, or do we need to have a vote? Agreed. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you, James, for presenting that. So item 8 was the planning application, but this is, has been withdrawn, as I said at the beginning of the meeting. So we move on to item 9, which is Yule Road Cycle Route development. This is members of the committee and meeting participants may refer to Appendix D of the agenda pack. I'll just point out that this is not an item for decision, but the committee is asked to note and comment on the proposals of the cycle route as set out in paragraphs 10 to 14 and annexes 1 to 4 of the report, which will then be forwarded to the Place Committee for decision on moving to the next stage, which is the detailed design and implementation at its next meeting on the 14th of March, 2024. So may I invite Ian Baker, Team Manager, Sustainable Transport, and Mohammed Maktabi, Project Manager for the Yule Road Cycle Scheme, to give a brief introduction on the report, and then this will be followed by public comments and then debate by members of the committee. So would you like to proceed, please?
Thank you, Chair. Will do. I'll keep it as brief as possible, but I do need to do justice to the feedback that we've had through the engagement phase of this project, which we've divided into various themes. We've tried to summarise as quickly as possible. So increasing the number of people walking, cycling and using public transport has the potential to transform the borough and improve the lives of the people who live, work and study here. It helps relieve the pressures on the borough's transport network and helps deal with future transport demands alongside a growing population. The Yule Road cycle route was designed to create safer and more desirable links to improve the environment for all road users. The proposal to complete the unfinished section of the route and amend the shared use area north of Langley Road is intended to improve the experience of everyone using the route and help more people who can choose to walk and cycle this route rather than to drive or be driven. There would be benefits also to the families using Dysart School in putting in a proposed crossing there, along with a disabled parking bay over the road, and benefits too for pedestrians and cyclists as a result of improvements proposed in this report at Yule Road's junctions with Elgar Avenue and Princes Avenue. Details to follow. Now, the designs for the as yet undelivered sections of the route were consulted on and approved at Strategic Committee previously. The designs presented here today are based on those designs with amendments that reflect the outcome of Kingston's 2023 cycle route review and also our recent stakeholder engagement. Public engagement was undertaken with letters posted to all affected properties, totalling 871 letters along the corridor and complemented by site visits to the local businesses. Road safety audits have been and will continue to be undertaken on the proposed changes throughout the project. If approved at Place Committee next month, construction works would begin in this summer. The current cost estimate is 1.738 million, with approximately £750,000 of this coming from Transport for London, possibly more later in the year, and the remainder being funded by Kingston, including through SIL and Section 106 contributions. The proposed changes, and these are divided into 4 separate items. The unbuilt section of the route is between Holyfield Road and Red Lion Road. The proposal is to provide high-quality segregated cycle lanes on both sides of the road in the same direction as traffic. We're also proposing to add zebra crossing east of Douglas Road, Broomfield Road Junction, and to upgrade a crossing west of the Red Lion Road junction to a two-can crossing. For the section of Yule Road between Browns Road and 134 Ewell Road, we are proposing to provide a segregated cycle lane along Ewell Road on the west side to replace the existing shared use area. This is in response to feedback on the quality of the existing provision. Outside Dysart School, we are proposing to upgrade the existing uncontrolled crossing to a zebra crossing, and as I mentioned, to provide 2 disabled parking bays opposite the school. And at Elgar Avenue junctions, the Elgar Avenue junction and the Princes Avenue junction, sorry, we say Princess in the report, it's Princes, we are to provide 2 crossings across both side roads to better facilitate safer pedestrian and cyclist movements. Now, as part of the engagement strategy, the team's engaged with the following: local residents, local businesses, emergency services, local groups representing people with disabilities, and local cycling groups. The responses we've had back, we've separated into 9 themes for the as yet unbuilt section. Theme 1 is about removal of parking, with people feeling it's detrimental to residents, businesses, and local users, and also the question of adding more parking along the route. So the proposed parking bays will, in general, be limited to 2 hours per stay to encourage turnover. Loading bays have also been provided along the majority of the side roads to make sure that businesses can easily receive their deliveries. And during the public engagement on the proposals, a request was received to provide a parking space east of Douglas Road to support the businesses there. Unfortunately, there isn't space to accommodate both this space and the proposed zebra crossing at the same location. The zebra crossing there has been proposed to facilitate pedestrians' movements across your road. Visitors to the businesses east of Douglas Road will be able to drop off and pick up along the double yellow lines along Ewell Road, or park in the unrestricted parking area along Douglas Road under the designs as they currently stand. Theme 2 of the feedback on the as yet unbuilt section is around the scheme not being safe, and in response the report suggests that the scheme was designed in accordance, it states the scheme was designed in accordance with local and national design guidance, including TfL's LCDS, that's the Cycle Design Standards, and the Department for Transport Cycle Infrastructure Design. Stakeholders, including Kingston Cycle Campaign and disability groups, were included in the design process of the scheme. And I've mentioned the road safety audits that we've done and continue to do for the scheme. Theme 3 was around the cycle route appearing to have little benefit due to limited cyclists and not many users. And in response, we do anticipate that once the route is complete, we will see an increase in the numbers of cyclists using the route. Theme 4, new cycle route plan and proposals are positive and will improve junctions, so people were in favour, and we had 6 responses stating that. Theme 5, there was a fear of an increase in congestion. And in response, the proposed changes to the junctions have been approved by TfL following detailed traffic modelling and capacity assessments to limit the delays to buses and general traffic. And the London Ambulance Service, London Fire Brigade and Metropolitan Police were engaged, and emergency services will also be engaged as part of the proposed experimental traffic management order consultation. And theme 6, environment and public realm concerns relating to tree removal, data along the Ewell Road route, and this is in relation to air quality as well. The data along the Ewell Road route showed that NO2 concentration has been declining since 2016-17. This showed that the air quality along the corridor has not been negatively impacted by the built sections of the cycle route, and a similar impact is expected once the remainder of the route is built. The removal of a small number of small trees has been proposed as a last resort, and only where all other options have been considered unfeasible. Where trees are proposed to be removed, this was done on the basis of balancing the desire for environmental preservation with road capacity, footway widths, and minimising shared use areas. Theme 7, the feeling that the money could be spent better elsewhere. The Place Committee will consider a proposal in March for the completion of this route, with comments from this committee being taken and presented at Place. And it will be Place's place to approve a funding package, including a significant contribution expected from TfL. Theme 8, shared space designs appear to be unsafe. And in response, the use of shared use areas has been limited in the proposed designs. It's not the council's policy to have shared use everywhere, but where necessary, it can actually increase safety. And theme 9, continuous footways, Copenhagen-style crossings are dangerous. Well, there have been studies on this, and studies have shown that there is no discernible difference in the frequency of collisions and near misses between continuous footways and other types of side road entry treatment. And committee, please note that the construction and paving of the existing continuous crossings is being reviewed as part of the council's maintenance programme, and a revised specification is being developed that will be more robust. And then there is very similar feedback for the other section just north of Langley Road, categorised into 5 themes rather than 9. The one that's worth mentioning is around parking. Now, the reason for the work here is, I'll remind you, the current shared space arrangements are substandard, do not work well for pedestrians or cyclists, particularly more vulnerable groups such as visually impaired. Now, there are specific concerns here, concerns that removing and moving parking bays to more safely separate the cyclists and pedestrians will impact on the nearby businesses. To offset the removal of the parking bays along Ewell Road, just north of Langley Road, 3 pen display parking bays are proposed along Browns Road and 2 bays along Langley Road. This will effectively reduce the number of lost bays from 10 to 5. In Browns Road, the 3 parking bays we are proposing would be in place of yellow lines, and regulatory services colleagues have written to nearby businesses to make them aware of the proposals, because we're aware that some of those yellow lines are currently used for bin storage. One of the businesses has got back and said they would find it hard to make alternative arrangements for their bin storage. Now, the proposal is, however, to introduce the relocated bays using experimental traffic management orders starting in the summer when the works would happen, and there would be a 6-month period for people to come back to us to let us know whether the arrangements are working for them or not. I'm nearly there, Chair. Thanks for your patience. And just finally to note that an equalities impact assessment has been written up, is being kept as a live document, and is available for scrutiny as part of the agenda pack. And I'm done there. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Well, thank you very much for that, Ian. I'd like to, we have a number of people here tonight who wish to make comments. I believe there's 3. So I'd like to invite them forward one by one, starting with Bridget Walker, please. Now, I would like everybody to be mindful of time. So if possible, be grateful if you could keep your comments to 3 minutes to allow us to.
It might be a bit difficult because I've been waiting all night, but I will do my best.
Okay, well let's try. Let's get through the. Let's ask the questions. Did you have questions for officers, or did you wish to make comments?
Right. This is the sort of thing we have to look at, and I can't read it unless I've got an eyeglass. So for the next time, can somebody get it printed? The original ones were very easy to read if those of you who were around in 2016 saw them. But the current ones we got in December, it's just, I don't know what you get, but it's just impossible, all right? So I would have sent all my feedback, Ian, to you, but it's taken me, since the report to carry on. Right, let me see how we can get on. First of all, thank you for letting us comment on it. Can you hear me? Is it on? Yeah. Right, my name's Bridget Walker, and my husband has decided not to stay all night. We've lived with the effects of increased congestion and pollution on the Ewell Road for over 40 years. So I can tell you how many cars are going up and down that road on any one time. And contrary to what has been said previously about the cars going down, it's absolute rubbish. Because every single day for the last few weeks, the cars are stopped at 3 o'clock in the afternoon going to Tolworth and in the morning at 8 o'clock. So maybe on the other roads where they've got these traffic man, maybe they're not there. But they're certainly still on the Yule Road, and we're looking at the go cycle. Now, whether the reduction in lanes of the bit that's already been completed has much to do with it, I don't know. But the buses, when they stop, nobody can get past them, whereas they used to be able to go round, and there was a filter lane going into Berrylands. So that has increased. If you're in a car coming up from St Mark's Hill, how long it takes you to get up to Tolworth. So there's no doubt in my mind that reducing the Yule Road by adding the pedestrian and the cycle lanes has reduced the width of it. You may not have taken a whole lane, but you have reduced it. Okay, I'm going to try and do mine. You've got the report, you've gone through, and I'm doing it like Power 11, and I've got questions. I can give you a copy of the questions, of what I'm saying so that they can be answered. Okay, as I live on the Yule Road, I'm particularly interested in knowing what high-quality segregated cycle lanes actually mean. Is it more poles? All right, do you want to answer as we go through if it's quick?
It might be simpler if you just run through your
All right, but
questions
because I don't want poles outside my house. Okay. For the simple reason, if you saw the photographs I've given in, the rubbish that gets between those bits, which you've got to pay forever to get a man to go and clean because you can't send the normal one, they're horrible, and they're all black, the dirt on the white thing, so they're not much use in the night. So they are horrible, and I want to know what a high-quality segregate means for us on that part of the Yule Road, okay? And also the businesses along from Hollyfield, okay?
30 seconds.
Oh, yeah, you're going to have to give me longer than that. I've only got one question done. Right. Dysart School, is it going to be in the same place as the existing uncontrolled crossing? Because it has a big impact on the traffic being stopped at Hollyfield because you've removed a lane to put the cycle track in front of the shops, okay? Now, are the signalised toucan crossings for Princess and Elgard really required? The current system works fine. It could save a bit of money. You say significant growth is why, we'll see cyclists, but the 6% statistics in outer London are unhelpful because if one cyclist becomes 2, that would be a 100% increase. So what I'd like somebody to provide is how many people cycle before Go Cycle and how many are doing it now. There are a lot of questions here on resource implications I have sent to the budget people because I think it's important to know where they're coming from. I'll miss that out for now. We get on to map 2 and theme 3. You're using statistics from 2021. However, during 2021 with COVID lockdowns, there weren't any cars on the Yule Road. It was brilliant, there just weren't any there. So it's not giving a true picture of the NO2 concentration. So I think, I'd prefer to know what the facts are now. Why are you removing the useful pedestrian island between the 2 lots of shops? Why do 7 trees have to be removed? We've had an argument about this on email. Why do we need to move the parking bays? Are you planning to reduce the pavement outside coffee traders? Now, I still say that this number 9 and 10 is what was agreed in November 2018, it was at the meeting. There is nothing on that about tree removal. And I haven't to date got an answer as when anybody agreed that trees were going to be moved outside the co-op. And that, you would have paid money to put that there. Has it got anything to do with stopping the flooding? They're mending the culvert at the moment. I don't know, but the budget report quotes climate change, and we've had a person talking about climate change and the need to reduce carbon. So disregarding the role trees have in soaking up carbon, helping to reduce surface water flooding, we've heard about that, is bad. Gardens are being concreted over when the houses are turned into flats. Mature beech, sycamore, oak trees have been removed. So, we've lost all that. So, they're not particularly wonderful trees, but there is one in front of the shops outside the coffee shop, coffee traders, that is very tall.
Could I ask you to bring your comments, because we do have two more speakers, and it's I appreciate it's beginning to get a little late. So.
Well, I know.
Yeah.
It's too important to be hurried, and this is a neighbourhood meeting, not a planning meeting. You say providing additional bays east of Douglas Road is deemed unfeasible due to the proposed zebra crossing. So why can't the zebra crossing replace the existing uncontrolled crossing? We think if, at the moment, we hop off the bus, we go across the uncontrolled crossing, absolutely no problem. This committee previously refused having a zebra crossing because it wasn't needed. But if you put one after Broomfield and before Douglas, you're going to, just as the traffic starts to go up the road, it's been slowed all the way up from St Mark's Hill, you're going to put another crossing. It's crazy, you know, and that's a bit that's virtually outside my house. So I just think that needs to be looked at, all right? We haven't had any incidents doing it the other way, and I think it needs, right. Why are you removing 10 parking spaces, 5 outside Mysteries Opticians to be replaced with 2 parking spaces? Do you want to kill the local shops? I mean, it's crazy. Now, I've already discussed this with Ian. Map 3 shows a bench outside the coffee shop being moved in front of the flats at Glanmer House. You said, I'm pleased to clarify that we don't plan to move it, but the new map, as at February, still shows it there. So can we please make sure that bench is gone off that map? Because we don't want people sitting outside flats at night. Right. We're very pleased to see the bus lane back to single yellow up to 351 Ewell Road, outside of 4 to 7 restricted hours. However, a plea, could we retain the single yellow lines outside the 7 to 10 bus lane on our side of the road? The stretch from Worthington to Red Lion will lose more than 17 parking bays or spaces. And one of the things that really annoys me is every time there's a planning permission to change a house into flats, it's because there's no parking spaces, but you can park on the Ewell Road. So your Tippett site is the one next to us where the officer said the development would lead to overspill parking on the, it is considered to prevent it. We'll have to have controlled parking, which that's fine. You might get your money, but the residents are going to be upset because you can't be guaranteed a space just because you've paid for it. All right. So, and then I've just realised that if you're going to put loading bays at the side roads, that takes off 2 parking spaces on it, whatever you do it. So it's even more lost. And the other thing that everybody forgets is people have visitors. There's a lot of houses, a lot of flats along this part of the Ewell Road and businesses. Home delivery vans, workmen. I can't bear to think where they're going to park once you've got double yellow on all that part of the Ewell Road. It's just so far, it's so long. And the side roads are at capacity most of the time. Okay? And I'll end up with, are there any plans to remove the segregated lines as they continue to be clogged with leaves and silt, causing a flood risk and danger to cyclists? And you mentioned about Princess. There's about four occasions where Princess should be Princes, but well done.
Okay. Well,
yeah, I think that'll do for now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think in terms of that's a lot of questions. I think the best thing would be if you could provide those questions for.
Do you want them or do you want them? Who wants them?
Perhaps it would be best to give them to the
I might
highways
have
officer.
spoken out of that, but that's the most of it.
You probably get a more sensible answer out of him than you will out of me. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for coming and speaking to us tonight, and for raising those.
But what I don't want to see, because this is the neighbourhood and you're putting it to place for decision, is to that report to just go as it is, which is what usually happens, because that's not fair. These things this road is too important. You need to properly thrash it out, what needs to change and what's good and what's not. We know you're going to put it there, but, you know.
Okay, thank you.
I do think so, as our councillors.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thank you. All good points. Thank you very much. And now, could I ask Sushila Abraham to come forward, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, councillors. It's late. I'm not going to say everything what Bridget has said. She's covered most of the stuff. But one thing I'm here for is the businesses on this side of the road where I have, on the Ewell Road. And Ian knows it very, very well, because I've constantly been saying how important we need is to keep these businesses going. If you remove the parking facilities that we have at the moment, those businesses will close. We do not want empty shops, councillors. We have enough and more on this Broadway, and you do not want vape shops coming up, encouraging other things happening, nail bars. You want proper solicitors' firms, hairdressers, and people like that. You're not thinking. You must look at this very carefully. I can tell you for a fact, by putting that crossing there, it's not going to help. What has happened and what has happened so far, and how these roads have been planned, and how it has been all these years, have worked for all the businesses and residents in that area. If you look at the additional spaces you've put in front of just away from my office, it's after 298 Ewell Road, you've taken off 6 spaces, putting in 3, and you do realize the bus stop is there, Surbiton station is there, we cannot park. I work with a lot of vulnerable clients. I'm a solicitor for the elderly. Even today, I had about 4 clients coming in. Where are they going to park? You must consider how important it is. You can say what you like. As Bridget said, since 2021 and 2021 during COVID, you were looking at the traffic. The traffic is horrendous in that road. That traffic, and if you narrow these, and the way you've put the cycle lanes, for instance, if you get off at the bus up South Terrace, it has happened to me so many times. Getting out of the bus to get into Surbiton station, I was near misses about cyclists coming straight into you. I have seen elderly people fall. That's how bad it is, because you get off the bus closes the door, they go, but the cyclist gone. You have no space. So you have bus stop, cycle lane, and a bus stopping here. And that's what you're going to do here. You have a crossover here. And I have a crossover in front of my office. What's the use of having a crossover if you have a cycle lane going through? Someone goes in, parks, they want to pull out, they're going to knock a cyclist. You have to think about this very seriously. And please, councillors, I've been a councillor, I know what it is like. I've begged for this for so many years not to go ahead. And I thought that this was over and done with. You're causing more traffic, you're causing pollution. Just look at what has happened in front of Sainsbury's, Princess Avenue, that area. You just look at that. You get 2 buses there, it clogs up the whole traffic, exactly what you said. You cannot move. Please, I'm really requesting you, on behalf of all the businesses on that side of the road, that you do not, please do not go ahead with this plan. Take it somewhere else. Don't waste the money here. Don't waste the money to put pedestrian crossings here. Another thing, Elgar Avenue and Princess Avenue, you don't need a crossing there. It's perfectly all right. Don't waste that money there. I live in Elgar Avenue and I know very well how it is like that. There's no problem. We already have a crossing in front. You don't need any further crossing. Please don't block these places. I'm really requesting you, councillors, to think about this seriously. Okay. Do not lose the business. I'm really passionate about. I've been in that area for more than 20 years, my business. But my business will start deteriorating, and so will others on that road, because this plan goes ahead. So I'm making this plea and request, and on behalf of all. I must say the last petition was in December 2020. Okay, so I'm leaving it with you with the hope that you will look at your conscience and think about what your residents and your businesses want. We pay business rates. Okay, please do that.
Right, thank you. I think we
Thank you.
Got the point there. Thank you very much. And could I ask our third, that would be Salvatore Lamanto. Okay. Thank you very much.
Hi.
And welcome.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Basically, I've been a business at 314 Ewell Road, which is next to what used to be Tippett's Motorcycles for over 35 years. My business, I can see it deteriorating really badly. due to the cycle lane being put in, a lot of parking spaces being taken away. I have got a lot of elderly ladies, disabled people, and they can't get onto my area. They need a space very, very close to the shop in order so I can continue business. I can see my business going downhill very fast. A lot of my clients are over the age of 70, 80, 90. And having a parking space, disabled or not, sort of further away, they're not going to be able to make it easily. Some of my clients drive there. Some of them just, they get dropped off. The ones that get dropped off won't be able to get dropped off anymore. So if you can do something to be able to help me with off-street parking, I know this is directed more for my personal use, but my local businesses would also help if it's not off-street, something either disabled, timed, or whatever, nearby. Thank you very much for listening.
Okay, and thank you very much for coming to the committee and speaking tonight. Thank you very much for that. So, yes, so as I said, the committee is not required to pass a resolution for this agenda item. Would members of the committee who wish to speak, please raise your hand. And so I see Councillor Davies and Councillor Schapper. Any other? Councillor Gonsalves. Okay, so please, Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I just feel out to speak up in favour of cycleways, I'm afraid. 30 plus years ago, I helped the Kingston Cycling Campaign make homemade signs to put on quiet routes around the borough. And at that point, you could cycle on quiet routes and get from A to B fairly safely. Now there are no quiet routes because of parked cars, not because of the traffic volumes, but just simply the number of parked cars means that you're cycling down the middle of the road. My kids all cycled from a very young age. You know, as soon as they get on bikes, they were on the road. I wouldn't let them go on the pavement. I don't think I'd let them do that now because they would have to be in the middle of the road. I was against separated cycle routes to start with, but having seen the state of the quiet routes, I'm now totally in favour of separated cycle routes, and I think that's the only way to go. But I take the point about business and parking. Certain little bits of it work really well at the moment. The bit behind, the bit you were talking about with Sainsbury's, I really like that bit. I come out of Elgar Avenue, I turn right on the bike route. There are parked cars as well, it seems to work. So if the scheme could incorporate more of that kind of thing, I'd be very much in favour of it. I'm still in favour of them, of bike routes in principle.
Councillor Schapper.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I've been listening really carefully to the comments tonight. So I just wanted to really reflect on what you've been saying. So I do have sort of comments and questions rolled into one. My comment first and foremost is as a local of that area, I have observed over 20 years how pedestrians walk across from what is called the removal of the central reservation. I don't know what term you've used, Ian, in the map to refer to where Broomfield Road is the bit that helps you cross the road, basically. A what? A refuge. My concern is that where the zebra crossing is proposed is in the wrong place. And the reason why I think it's in the wrong place is because what pedestrians do is they either get off the bus opposite Douglas Road and they walk either up your road or into Douglas Road or into Broomfield Road, or they come out of Broomfield Road and they walk across the road. So where you want to put the zebra, I think, is in the wrong place. I think you should retain the central reservation aisle. If you want to make it a zebra, great, but I certainly think you shouldn't move it to create a new zebra on the other side of Broomfield Road. I think that would be wrong. And the other thing is, because of the amount of pedestrians that do cross the road at that point, as I say, coming off the bus, I think it would just add a further complication in that area when you don't need to make it more complicated. I would say that I take on board about the comment about the disabled bays, because in 2020, I distinctly remember, I recall being in the committee when the late Chris Stewart was extremely concerned, having had representations from CASIL, Kingston Centre for Independent Living, about the removal of a sufficient number of bays to be a concern for that area. So I guess my comment and question is, I think we need to look really, really carefully at the number of disabled bays that are being proposed, the number of bays that are being removed and the number of disabled bays that are available. Because I think CASIL's comments aren't really represented in this report. I'm looking on one of the pages, D6, and it doesn't really mention it. It's sort of, you have a glance comment, a brief reference, but what it doesn't actually say is probably more meaningful for tonight, what it doesn't say. And what it doesn't talk about is CASIL's arguments and their deliberations about what the impact of this scheme is going to do for disabled people. So I do see a lot of businesses who rely on parking for disabled clients. It has a different feel to that area than further up the road. Just the characteristics of it are slightly different. And I would therefore say that a greater consideration should be given to disabled bays in that area. And whether that is a simple solution to fix or to explore, I don't know. But as a comment, I'd like to feed that through. I think this plan needs to be tweaked considerably before it's approved. And finally, I cannot see any figures in here for net loss. And that's really important because I believe, and again, I recall from the first round we did as councillors, that we looked at what was then called the Go Cycle scheme, Kingston Highways scheme. There was a net loss, I believe, of 10 parking spaces in total at the time near Langley. And I believe, I know, Ian, we spoke before the meeting, there's a net loss of 4. So whilst that's not as bad as it first appears, if you include the loss of net 4 on that stretch, combined with the net loss in and around Douglas Road, you do have to ask the question, where are people going to park who are disabled? I don't mean this to be offensive, but I'm less worried about the less disabled, if that makes any sense. Excuse my clumsy language, but I'm more concerned about those people that do really rely on not being able to walk very far. So I'd like to have some further consideration on the number of disabled bays and where they're going to be located. But my primary concern is where that zebra crossing is located. I think it really is in the wrong place. And I think it needs to go to where the assisted, whatever you called it, for the reasons I've mentioned. That they were really my main observations.
Okay, well, thank you.
And again, I really appreciate the feedback tonight on residents' concerns. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Schupper and Councillor Gonsalves.
Oh, thank you. Also similar to Anita, it's questions and comments. So my first one is, when we consulted on the Green on Lenaby Road, there were a few people suggested that they find it quite difficult to cross from Lenaby Road to Alexander Rec, even though there's a refuge there at the moment. Looking at the drawing, I think the refuge is coming off, and they had actually asked for a zebra crossing there. So I was wondering if that would be considered, and I would really be against removing the refuge there because there's a big gap between Red Lion Road and I think Princess Avenue. There's no other crossing between those two roads. Then my second point was about the Red Lion Road junction with Eel Road. So there's a proposal to create 2 lanes on exit to make sure that to help reduce the amount of queuing that happens there. Based on previous conversations we've had with residents from Red Lion Road, that's something they really support, because at the moment there's quite a long queue sometimes. If people can't go right, everybody ends up queuing. And then my third point was similar to what Anita was saying about the zebra crossing. So as part of the Toll of Healthy Streets consultation, we had feedback from residents similar to the Lenoby Road feedback. People want to be able to cross more easily in order to reach Alexander Rec, because we don't have many green spaces in our ward. And they were asking for a zebra crossing. But I agree with the point about the zebra crossing possibly staying on the west side instead of the east side of Douglas Road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. And are there any further comments? No? Okay. Thank you. As said at the beginning, this is for noting, or for our consultation, basically, and you can take the, asking officers to take the comments away and take that under advisement for the report that will go to the Place Committee. So that brings a close to this agenda items this agenda item. Thank you very much to those who came and spoke today. And we'll now move on to the next item on our agenda. And that is item 10, the planned highway maintenance and street lighting capital program 24-25. I think you've got us. I think they're vacating the space there.
I don't mind whatever works for anybody.
Yeah, that works great for us.
Thank you.
I would just just to set the scene. I just want to say this is not an item for decision, but the committee is asked to consider the program set out in Annexes 2 and 4 of the report, and provide any comments for consideration by the Place Committee at its meeting on the 14th of March. So over to George Vickers, Principal Engineer, to give us an introduction.
Thank you. Is this on? Yeah, lovely. Sorry, Mark. Apologies, didn't realise it wasn't on. Thank you, Chair. I will comment briefly on the street lighting part of the report, as my colleague Naz Islam unfortunately couldn't attend this evening. Long and short of it, 89% of the borough's got LED lighting currently, and his part of the report, basically it's a survey of columns for like structural testing. Those that fail the surveys basically get added to the programme for the point of consideration, basically, and those that are fine don't, essentially. That's what's covered in that part of the report. And as a separate point of note, as I know Herman picked this up when one of the other councillors picked it up, the system that they're using hadn't been updated to the latest ward boundaries, so several that were in Surbiton were flagged as being in south of the borough and vice versa, basically, which I apologise for on their behalf. In terms of planned maintenance, which I cover, we basically take the allocated budget that we get annually every year, we split it approximately 25% to each committee area, give or take, because you're never going to get a perfectly exact split. At the moment, the lowest split this year went 21%, and Surbiton actually has got the highest split this year for carriageways, which is 31% in total. That's an approximate difference between top and bottom of approximately £100,000. We then also split that to the remainder of it to footways to be done in each borough, each neighbourhood committee area, and that's solely focused on taking up concrete ASP paving, which is a higher cost to maintain, and replacing it with a tarmac footway, essentially. There's lots of concrete ASP paving in the borough, and we're just focusing on taking that up and replacing it with a more maintainable surface. And as a point of note, last year schemes had to be dropped, unfortunately, due to a commercial issue with one of our contractors. on a specific rate item. It was only one individual item out of about 3,000 that there was a question over, which unfortunately affected 3 of the 4 footway schemes. So this year on the footways, 3 of the 4 committee areas are catching up on this scheme from last year, and the other area, New and Old Malden, basically, which had the scheme done last year. I think it was New and Old Malden. Sorry, bear with me. It was actually south of the Borough. I apologise. Basically, it is the only committee area without a footway scheme this year. In terms of the roads being done in Surbiton, basically, you've got Warren Drive North, and we do surveys annually. We use a program called Visana AI, which basically gives an independent score. It's like literally driving down the road. You get the video footage, it analyses it basically, and scores it against it. So you get an independent and objective score. That then also goes with like officer visual inspection, basically, as occasionally the number just doesn't make sense, but 9 times out of 10 or more, it does. So we surveyed 941 roads in total this year, or my senior plan maintenance officer, Gert Van Wyck, did, I should say. Warren Drive North scored just in the top 17% pretty much in terms of condition, but it's an important point to note, with the funding we get, we can only cover on a good year between 1 to 2% of the borough's total road stock. So in an ideal world, you'd love to be able to cover more, but we are incredibly grateful for what we get. So we then have to look at it in terms of other objective factors to consider. So for something like Warren Drive North, for instance, it's a busy route taking traffic from your road to the A3 northbound to avoid Tolworth roundabout, for example. It was a request from our reactive maintenance team, and we feel the Visala values don't actually reflect the visual inspection, as you're getting aggregate loss in the surface, like basically the aggregate holds the tarmac together essentially, and once that's starting being lost, you've got an indication that your carriageway is starting to fail. So we've moved that up to a higher consideration than its inspection would consider, basically, and that's one of the roads we want to focus on. Elgar Avenue is the next road up, section between Rayburn Avenue and Highfield Road. Again, it's the second section to complete. So the overall average score for the road is quite good, but it still places it in the top 15%. It's the second section that troubles us, which one of the things Visala does will give you a score for the overall road as a whole, and will give you a score for the worst 100 metres. The worst 100 metres in Elgar Avenue scores in the top 2.3% of worst roads in the borough. So, I mean, long and short of it, we want to include it. Langley Road, Oak Hill Crescent to Upper Brighton Road. Again, previous section's been done, so this would be the second section we're looking at. So the average condition's quite good. The worst section is just outside the top 15%, but we're looking again for the fact the section we're doing is in front of a school, very busy footfall area, plenty of cyclists on the road as well, and we're starting to see potholes opening up in it. We're trying to be proactive and trying to get in front of the problems before they occur where possible. Next road up is Paragon Grove, basically super poor condition, one of the worst scoring roads in the borough. Basically, it's top 20 overall worst roads out of the 941 surveyed. It's only a small cul-de-sac, admittedly, but there comes a point when something's bad enough that even if it's not getting heavy usage, you can't just keep ignoring it. So that's the rationale that we're applying here. Claremont Gardens is the next road up that we're considering, just in the top 10% worst roads. And one thing I'd like to point out with that, in terms of the Visala surveys that were carried out this year, that actually scored 59 out of 100. So it's not actually that bad, but that places it in the top 10% of worst roads in the borough. And I think that's a thing to recognise, that the overall condition isn't actually that bad. However, there's probably a lot of roads that are going to be bad within the next couple of years. So that's why we're trying to head off some of those roads as we can see the problems now. Claremont Gardens itself, cul-de-sac again, but it's next to a school, so you're getting a large amount of through traffic or residents parking in that area potentially. So that's why we want to consider it in that respect. Prince's Avenue is the 6th road up out of the 7 that we've got. Basically, hook rise north to Hamilton Avenue, busy road, section of it which need attention. We're looking to do 2 sections over the next 2 years, essentially. Road scores in the top, just outside the top 6% worst out of those surveyed in 2023. With one particularly poor section, like if you look at the worst 100 metres, it's just inside the top 3% worst. Final road we're looking at is Surbiton Hill Park, basically, and 3rd section to be done. So the average score is quite good, but the worst section itself, which we're focusing on for next year, is just outside the top 11% worst in the borough from those surveyed. And that is the section of roads we're going through. In terms of the footway, it's just another section of concrete ASP paving coming up to be flipped to tarmac, surfacing, and that's Burney Avenue. Whole road's being done, essentially. And yeah, that totals what we're planning in this case. Happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Right, okay. Hands have shot up. So Councillor Shapper and then Councillor Davies.
Thanks, Chair. Just a really quick question, George. Thanks for that presentation. It's just a question for practicality, really. You talk about grading system. I find that really interesting. And what I'd like to know is there any way that you could give us a graded system in terms of 1, 2, 3 years forecasting? In other words, you've graded these ones as being the worst, but what were the 2nd and 3rd down the list? Because actually what I'm more interested in is what's happening in a year or two's time, and that's going to help with identifying future works, and that was really useful for us on the ground. Yeah, thanks, George.
100%. Gert, when he had this came up as a subject because, as you see in section 8, sorry, I believe the numbering changed because there was another paragraph asked to be added in. It was number 8 on the copy of the report I've got. The Department for Transport has actually identified funding to local authorities to use on highway infrastructure. And one of the things that's been asked for that subject for years 3 to 10 of it is almost a 10-year programme. Gert, when he had a moment, just actually ranked the list and then split down what could be done over a 10-year period. So it was just a hypothetical thought exercise, but yes, you could use that. The problem that there is with that is it assumes the funding remains consistent, what you can do every year remains consistent, and the rate of degradation will remain consistent. But I found it of value because it gives you a good indication. I would like to try and forward plan where we can, as I think that's the optimistic and pragmatic way of looking at it. So you can actually look into the future and go, yes, that's going to be a problem. So yeah, I'm more than and I've said this to the other committees I've been to, more than happy to have an informal or separate group session with everyone involved, maybe like 3 months down the line, 6 months down the line, to just get an idea of what's coming up in your communities, the problem, what roads you'd like us to look at and consider, and get more involvement that way. So 100% in favour of having a session like that. Not a problem at all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Davies.
Yeah, I think I might have said this before, actually. I think the way of deciding how bad a road is actually quite flawed. I think you need to go around on a bike, or even better, one of the higher electric bikes, then you will feel every bump. I was so disappointed when Elgar Avenue was done, because you did the bit that wasn't too bad and not the bit that's just horrendous. And then the bit that I actually avoid, because you go bumpety, bumpety, bump, and it's really quite painful, and my cakes got wrecked. A few little bits of tarmac have been put in, but it's not sufficient. Last time we had this discussion, I think I was told that the road down to Berryland Station was one of the worst in the boroughs. And then recently the area around the roundabout at the top of the road was recovered, but not the bit down to the bottom. And what my last point is about that red stuff that you have at crossings that breaks down. Do you know what I mean? Really, really bad at the end of Highfield Road and Elgar Avenue. Appalling in Grand Avenue. I mean, I have in the past wrecked a bike wheel on those kind of surfaces, and they are just impossible, really.
Thank you. Really fair point. In terms of the red anti-skid, I mean, that's a wider discussion that has, on technical grounds, if you have something at 20 mile an hour as a limit, you can argue that there is no need for adding red anti-skid, but it's usually added as a colour to warn of the danger of a crossing, but then you've got a maintenance issue as a separate problem there. But you're then thinking out, if you've got a 20-mile-an-hour limit, do you need the warning? It's a separate issue, but I totally get your point. It's a wider maintenance issue that anti-skid costs a lot of money to maintain. So, but it's a balancing act. But where I don't cover like reactive maintenance, like if anti-skid is failing, we replace anti-skid on a road if we're resurfacing it, basically. In terms of, I cover what's called planned maintenance. For things like potholes and defects, that would sit with the reactive maintenance department, and maybe that'd be a separate issue to look at. With regard to Elgar Avenue, though, I do remember the chat we had about this last year, because this was the thing. One section was done last year. This is the second section to be done in the road, and it is, we think we're going to be, I don't know the road well enough, in fairness, I'll admit that. But we think this will be the worst section, like based on what was done last year, that what now is the worst section, like Rayburn to Highfield? Or sure.
The absolute worst section is Mule Road to Rayburn Avenue. It has been patched up recently, but already the tarmac is falling out of the holes. Somewhere where cyclists have to go in the middle of the road, and I laughed about it with another cyclist the other day because she was doing just that. It's really treacherous. And if we want to encourage people to cycle, we really need to get these road surfaces sorted.
Okay. Happy for that to be noted, kind of thing, as a point of consideration. Absolutely fine.
Councillor Hurlinger.
Yeah, just staying on Elgar Avenue, the section that Councillor Davis mentioned also has the K2 bus on one section but not on the other. So I was wondering whether the bus usage gets taken into the calculations.
100%, yeah. I mean, for instance, if you had two roads of a similar score, for instance, something with bus usage is going to take more degradation, basically. I haven't got objective data to prove it, but that would be one of my bigger concerns going forward is electric buses, because the alleged increased weight over a standard like diesel bus, basically. I've been told figures, but I've not personally looked into it enough, but it does trouble me. As I'm aware, they've had problems in other London authorities with that.
Okay, do we have any further comments? Did we have a comment down there? Yes, Councillor Gonçalves.
So George mentioned earlier, but I've just given a list to Herman of the roads in Tolworth that are on the list, but incorrectly listed as south of the borough. So the report can be updated before place.
And as I said, apologies again. It was apparently the street lighting system it wasn't updated to the new ward boundaries that came in a couple of years ago. As this came up particularly in south of the borough, as there were several in Councillor Grocott's ward, which she pointed out, which got corrected. So we thought it was isolated to that, but it appears to have been a combination between south of the borough and Surbiton. Apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Manders.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can we thank the officer for such a knowledgeable and detailed report?
Appreciated. Indeed we can. Thank you very much.
Really quite remarkable, and we're all local experts here, and I think he's done very well in answering our questions. Just to say very briefly, and I'll take on the point about electric buses, and I think we probably need to talk to TfL whether there's any increased axles or something to help spread the weight. Largely this is an area built in the 1930s, and the builders putting concrete roads in sections, and we've covered them in tarmac since then, but you can literally see the joins, and particularly in Rayburn Avenue where I live. And it is very, very difficult as the weights of vehicles have gone up. These were roads which were only designed and built in the end for very light vehicles against today's standards. Cars which were probably about half a ton, and probably lorries which were only a couple of tons, and now they have to bear the weight considerably higher than that. So I want to again thank the officer, and I think that's unanimous tonight, and what a great report. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. Yes, indeed.
Thank you. That's all I was going to say. Like, if you want to add any comments of, like, this came out of one of the other boroughs of, like, roads for consideration potentially in 25, 26, that is one thing I have actually added in draft to some of the place reports just as points of comment, as that was one of the ones that came up in New and Old Malden, for instance. So, and like, as I said, completely happy to have a meeting with councillors in like 3 to 6 months' time or whenever convenient, just to get an idea as we appreciate and value what you see on the doorstep. You live in the areas, you deal with the day-to-day issues. You, with over 400 kilometres of road in the borough that fall on the public highway boundary, we can't know every inch of it. So, you know, completely open to having another like informal session to go over issues like this. Not a problem at all.
Okay. Are there any further? Yes, Councillor Waldridge.
George, like Ian, I'm very impressed with your encyclopedic knowledge of such things. I love it. I could listen to you all day long. The opening salvo you gave us, if I got this right, because I like figures, like you like figures, is 1% to 2% of the whole funding is for one year?
No, basically, there's over 400 kilometres of road that fall within the public highway boundary. In terms of road that you're going to get resurfaced with the budget that's spent on carriageways, you're going to get somewhere between 4 to 8 kilometres of road resurfaced. So my maths may be off, but I believe that's about 1 to 2%.
Yeah, so so therefore it's a 50-year cycle. No pun intended.
Hadn't thought of it that way, but yes, yeah. And that's assuming costs would stay where they are, which, as we all know, inflation is not funny.
Absolutely, and that's something which is just astonishing figure, and it's got to be out there with our community. It's just astonishing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I've just observed that that's a 50 to 100-year cycle, actually, depending whether it's 1 or 2%. Yeah, exactly, or 100 years if it's 1%. But anyways, thank you. But that is quite a grim figure, I think, to present to people. I think it shows that the need for more funding for highways. But that's
just to stress, we're incredibly grateful for what we get, as we appreciate everything is difficult to come by at the moment, as there is so many pressures on councils like up and down the country, and it's not just Kingston that has this problem. So we are incredibly grateful for what we get, but it is a scary figure when you look at it, especially with the weight of cars going up, usage is going up in certain areas. It's a difficult balancing act, you know. So, but we're grateful for what we get. Thank you.
Right. Well, thank you very much. If there are no further comments, I'll draw that item to a close and just ask that you incorporate our comments into your report that's going forward to place. And moving on to item 11, the work programme. Would members please note the work programme at Appendix F of the agenda. Do members have any comments on this? No? Okay. Item 12, don't fold your laptops up yet. Item 12, response to petitions initially submitted to the committee. This basically, members of the committee and meeting participants may refer to the agenda front sheet and Appendix G of the agenda pack. So basically, in accordance with the petition scheme as amended by the full council at its 14 December 2023 meeting, the response to all petitions submitted to the committee shall be published in a subsequent agenda of the relevant committee. And accordingly, the council's response to the petition entitled Band Coaches on Thornhill Road and Tolworth Road, initially submitted to the committee on the 12th of December, was published in the agenda for information for members to read at their leisure. There are no urgent items authorized by the chair, so no further business. Close this meeting at 22:44. Thank you very much.